Occupation accessory residential land use and low density residential zoning district. This will be a public hearing, so I entertain a motion to open public hearing. So moved. A second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, any carried. Mr. Chronic, if you'd like to come forward. Give us your name and address for the record, and what you look.
Should swear him in, John.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
It's Richard Chronic, and the address is 2 South Street. And
Hang on, anybody who's going to speak over this matter is sworn in by Mr. Knapp.
anybody who's going to testify in this for or against, just please raise your right hand. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you. That's just for this one item.
Oh, here. You have to tell the truth for 3 days. Okay, sir, I apologize.
Okay, so my name is Richard Chronic, and I've had a marketing facility that's called Work Smarter for You. I've been in business since 2016. And what I had is obviously at home business, and I had the set up as it is. Main entrance, you go around the hallway, go straight into a separate office, separate from the house. What I'm offering is for the city of Galena, with it being a marketing consultancy. I've been coming here for 20 years, and I've noticed a lot of business coming and going. A lot of this because they're, I guess, being stripped to be in-person business. So with my marketing consultancy service, I offer a lot of video marketing, a lot of different marketing strategies, tools, resources, and I can actually help businesses create their website online, also get them registered on Google Maps, so they have a little more traction to last longer around the city. So it's something where having the ability to meet, business owners or even entrepreneurs in person, you have a lot more authority, like just meeting people here tonight, being able to see somebody in person, you get more credibility, and it allows you to actually understand what different business owners need. Okay, so when you're working with them one-on-one, I think you can actually walk them through the different strategies, as well as like with video editing and creating the different videos for businesses. That's something where the hands-on thing where you can actually meet with them and show them what to do. It's going to definitely benefit the business.
Any questions?
How many guests do you normally have?
Pardon?
Weekly, how many guests do you get a week?
A lot of the stuff I can do online, but at tops, you by appointment only. So I have maybe 2 clients or customers a day. Like I do have the driveway, I park in the garage, so they have off-street parking, so we have at the street.
And so you need the major home occupation in order to get the sign, right?
To get the sign, yeah, and then also just the ability to actually, a lot of different softwares and stuff, people don't know how to use them, so we actually show businesses how to use them would be a great asset to them.
And you anticipate that you would have more frequency of guests, or that the number of guests, pretty much the way it is now, is satisfactory to you?
Yeah, that's what I'm, with 2 a day, I have like morning appointments and afternoon appointments, and that way, or even in some cases, or just like evening appointments or something, but yeah, I don't really see it expanding that much, because I can actually do some of the stuff working with the clients online or via phone call or Skype or something, but when it comes to different softwares and applying it, that's when I need to have them.
So the reason for you to get the major home occupation is because you want the sign, not so much that you can increase the number of people coming to the house.
Right, correct. It's a sign, because like with Google, that's what they're putting the restrictions on the business having. They have to have a sign.
Okay.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of Jim, basically you're going to talk about, there was a client here, you got like 1 car.
Right.
At a time, you wouldn't have 3 or 4 people. 3 or 4 people coming at the same time.
No, we'll just do one customer, one business at a time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I've been coming to Galena for 20 years. I finally moved here in November, so I'm really grateful. Glad to be part of the community. Hopefully I can help everybody out.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else to speak in favor of
Can't
this?
hear it.
Anyone to speak in opposition? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Got a second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Oh, fuck.
Now entertain a motion on the request.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to allow a major home occupation as an accessory residential land use in a low density residential district, so the applicant will have to sign. With the condition that the number of allowed visitors stay consistent with the minimum application.
And a second. Right there, is that good?
No, it's still not cheese. Okay, so the application is consistent, number one, site plan review standards, number two, district standards, number three, the specific standards, number four, availability of use, number five, compatibility with adjoining properties, and number that is A, protection of privacy, B, protection of use and enjoyment, and C, compatible design and integration.
Dave?
Approved.
Clark? Yes. Hanson?
Yes.
Mello?
Yes.
Ramsey?
Yes.
Raffnet?
Yes.
Rosenthal?
Yes. Okay, next one is 22 PD-01. True North Quality Homes LLC, ND LLC. Request for preliminary approval and rezoning of limited agricultural land unit development. Plan unit development with the underlying district of planned commercial upon annexation into the corporate boundaries of the city of Galena. This is also a public hearing, so I entertain a motion over the public hearing.
Motion.
Then I'll.
Motion.
Okay, all those in favor of the public hearing, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same, carried. Anyone who's gonna speak?
Hang on.
So, Mr. Chair, I need to.
What?
Myself in this, but I need to-
Let the record show.
Somebody just called me, put it on mute. You said, oh, fuck.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. They heard it. Put it on mute.
So, yes. Anyone who's gonna speak in favor of or in opposition of this, needs to be sworn in by Mr. Knapp. So raise your right hand.
Anybody who's going to testify for or against this or may testify, please raise your hand. Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Jim, you want to come forward? That's fine.
Right.
Just so everybody knows, the applicant will go first. Public hearing. And ask questions of them. And after that, speak in favor of the request. Will speak, questions will be asked, and then people in opposition will speak, and then the applicant also has the right to come back and answer any of those questions we may have, all right? And then after that, we'll close the public hearing.
Working quite well.
I just asked you, state your name for the record and your address.
Sure. My name is Dave Hooton, and my address is 403 East Prairie Avenue, Wheaton, Illinois. Okay, on behalf of my wife Beverly, my son Austin, who is here tonight, and then my daughter-in-law Jamie, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to present to you a very exciting, what we believe is a very exciting project. The Marine Hospital came to Beverly, my wife and I, attention just over a year ago, and we fell in love with the building the minute we saw it. And we bought it on the goal of bringing it back to life and making it relevant again. And it's sat dormant, I guess, for 20-some years plus. And we just thought this building was too magnificent just to have, abandoned and laying in ruins there. So because we have a hospitality business, we envisioned creating a resort. And with that, we met the Rigdons, and we were able to buy the property, the Rigdons property. And we envisioned this as a perfect setting for special events and memories for not only the community, but our guests. Our plan in the most part is to keep most of the open spaces and plant acres of gardens and vineyards. And we want to include walking trails for the public and our visitors. In addition to restoring the Marine Hospital, we want to place and build cottages and other amenities on the most sensitive ways that we can for this beautiful piece. We want the resort to take advantage of the rural and wooded surroundings while respecting and celebrating the Marine Hospital. We've assembled a team of experts who are helping us to hopefully realize this vision of an upscale resort within a 10-minute walking distance from downtown Galena. We are excited to share this vision with you tonight. So thank you very much.
So our presentation is going to have me and Beth and Julia. Do you want us to, well, do our names individually when we come up, or? All right. So I wanted to start by going through sort of the history of the project a little bit.
Your name?
Your name, Jim.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Jim Baranski, 1015 South Bend Street. So I just want to take you through sort of the history of the project. As Dave had mentioned, the first part of the project was just the 10 acres of the Marine Hospital. As we were thinking about that project more and more, it became clear that the access was going to be a challenge, and anything other than, the Marine Hospital used as a single family residence, if we wanted to include some cottages or whatever, that we were going to run into some problems, because the only access for that property is off of Park Avenue, which is, right here. And it's right where the bike trail and Park Avenue come together. So the problem would be that if you have, guests arriving to stay at this property, when they hit that intersection between Park and the bike trail, you're going to have you're going to have cars, bikes, and pedestrians all together on that stretch. And the city, talking to the city, we, agreed that that was not a good idea. It was then that it was recommended to us to maybe have a conversation with the Rigdons. Did I do that? Sorry. So at that point, we decided that, since the access was such an issue, that we would need to look at a different way of getting onto the property. When we ended up talking with the Rigdons, Dave and the family had many discussions over many months, and finally came to an agreement to sell the rest of the property. The good news about that is that the Rigdon property has access right on 4th Street, which is right there. Here's Blackjack and here's 4th. And so we immediately set about to doing a preliminary plan to show what this project might look like. And we met with the immediate neighbors and to share with them our plans. Well, obviously, from the beginning, there were some concerns about this kind of project being in the backyard. But one of the major concerns was the 4th Street access and the idea of having, many more cars per day on that road was not appealing to the neighbors. So soon after that, Dave and I discussed the idea of moving the access to Blackjack Road right here. There's about 600 feet of frontage on Blackjack Road, and that's what we did. This is to give you just a little overview of what give you an idea of the topography of the property. So this is actually looking at the property from the north, but it gives you an idea of what kind of landforms that we have dealing with here. So I set this up in such a way that if you use the intersection, this is 4th Street, by the way, here, and this is Blackjack going down this way. I've used that intersection as what I call 0, 0, so the elevation. By the way, the Park Avenue is here, and here's the bike trail, and this is where they merge. And the only access right now into the Marine Hospital is way out here at the end. Many of you have probably been by that driveway and seen how that goes up. So to give you a quick idea here, you got 0, 0 road elevation at the corner of 4th and Blackjack. The lowlands down through here, they vary, but generally in the center here, they're 38 feet below the intersection at 4th and Blackjack. And then it goes back up to this bench, this is Jim Rigdon's current house. And that is back at 0, 0. So it goes down 38 feet, comes back up 38 feet. The bluff edge, basically, kind of coming around facing Blackjack and then kind of coming around to the north, that bluff edge is at plus 80 feet. So it's 80 feet above this intersection. It's about 100 and almost 120 feet above the lowlands there. The Marine Hospital is up at 78 feet, and the high point of the site is at 151. I want to show this picture only because it helps really, which this one doesn't do because it's not in 3D, other than the landforms are in 3D. This picture, I think, does a good job of showing just how wooded this site is. So our site is right here, okay? As you can see from this photo, the vast majority of the land that is facing town is quite heavily wooded, from the base of the hill all the way up to the top, including completely surrounding the Marine Hospital. So here's the Marine Hospital. So the project really started because of this building. Dave and Beverly fell in love with it, and it was their goal from the get-go to restore this building. The building was built in 1859 by Ely Parker, as most people probably know, and it's been, has several owners over the years. In the 1960s, the beautiful verandas were removed, as well as the cupola. The cupola was returned, or rebuilt, I should say, sometime in the late 80s and early 90s. We know that many people have been worried about the future of the Marine Hospital, and we completely understand their concerns. And even though Dave, Beverly, Austin, and Jamie are committed to restoring the building, they have taken the first steps to place the building on the National Register of Historic Places. I'll show you this. On the left there is a copy of a page from the application prepared by Beth that was sent to the State Historic Preservation Office in order to obtain what they call a preliminary positive opinion. It used to be called a determination of eligibility. This opinion is regarding the building's eligibility for inclusion on the National Register. On the right is the actual preliminary positive opinion letter to Beth from Amy Hathaway at SHPO that says the building is eligible to be listed. So we're on our way to getting the building listed. Also, after discussions with city officials, members of the Galena Foundation, and with members of the Galena Preservation Advocacy Organization, and in an effort to further cement the future of the building, an application has been submitted to the city to designate the Marine Hospital a local landmark. This will subject any changes proposed to the building to review by the Galena Historic Commission. Just want to show you some. So we do have drawings of the Marine Hospital. They're quite lovely and helpful. There's the floor plans, but the plan for the Marine Hospital in the first phase is to convert the upper floor, which is on the right, into 4 suites with ensuite bathrooms. On the left, which is the first floor, on the right-hand side of the first floor, that would be a check-in area, maybe like a coffee lounge. And on the left-hand side of the first floor would be an exhibit space that would be open to the public. So ultimately, when the building is restored, the building will be open to the public. Now, guests can't necessarily go to the second floor because that's where the people who are spending, are using the accommodations there. But they will have access to the first floor, and they'll have access to the basement lower level, which is quite lovely as well. We plan on putting like a lounge in there. With respect to the cupola is a little bit difficult to bring people up to from a life safety perspective. It's, we wouldn't be able to let people just roam up there. However, what we could do is maybe have targeted tours of 2 or 3 people at a time with some kind of a chaperone. The good news is that we have these drawings. So as we're trying to undertake a restoration, which is not always easy to do, we have drawings, but we also have something even better, which were remnants of the original cast iron capitals for the veranda that we're able to piece together. We will take these and we will cast these in cast aluminum along with the columns, and we will be able to restore the Marine Hospital so that it looks, well, I should also mention, inside, if anyone's ever been in there, there is the most spectacular cast iron staircase that you wouldn't, there's nothing like it probably within 500 miles. Really just spectacular, mostly in very good shape. It will be restored. And as you can see on the side of the stringers here, those are like whales and seashells, which is kind of cool. And that goes all the way up. So ultimately, when the Marine Hospital is finished, it will look something like this. It'll be handicap accessible in the back of the building, and the lower level will be accessible as well. Now, getting to our plan. In our first phase, that is revolving around the Marine Hospital. The Marine Hospital is right here, okay? And so in this first phase, we're going to be building 32 cottages in these loop roads around the Marine Hospital. Those are one-way roads, by the way, and people will park, a trail will park on the road next to their cottage. Also, we will be planting about 6 acres of vineyards down here in the in the southeast corner of the property. The Marine Hospital will be open to the public, and and there'll be trails. So you can see there's some trails that we're starting to develop here, and those trails connect right down. I'm sorry about the shaky hand here, but those trails go right down onto the Galena River Trail, which is right here. So people who are walking on the Galena River Trail will be able to go up what has been the road to get up to the Marine Hospital. It will no longer be the road. It will be just a trail. The other thing to point out is that 4th Street will essentially be closed. And I mean closed to this property. It'll be open before that. But there'll be no traffic from this development that will be able to use that access point. We will allow it for emergency vehicles. We'll have to use some kind of gate system, something along those lines. The main thing that's going on here is that this is the frontage along Blackjack. This is where the road will come up. So instead of using 4th, it'll be on this section of Blackjack. There'll be a road that comes in, loops around, and goes up the hill this way. I know there's been some concern about the relationship between the cottages and the Marine Hospital itself. This is a section taken through roughly this way right here. So one could see that the Marine Hospital is still perched up here. And then all these cottages are down below. Here's a cottage, here's a cottage. So if you struck a line from the basement floor level, all the way across, the cottages that are in that first ring, the roofs of those cottages will be below the basement floor of the Marine Hospital. I also add to that that this is a very wooded area. So if you're driving up, because you'll be driving up from the backside of the Marine Hospital, that's the only access, it'll be very difficult, if at all, to see any kind of cottage. Cottages are going to be very simple. This is not going to be little cabins, little historic buildings. They are going to be cottages that are responding to the woods and to into the rural area, but they're not meant to be historic buildings. Here is our second phase. The second phase is another loop road, okay, that will have cottages. A detention pond will be built at that time as well. The third phase is where we start to introduce some amenities. In the third phase, what we have is a cafe building, which is right here, and then what we call a main building. The main building would contain a restaurant and facilities to hold a wedding or other kind of banquet, all the necessary parking, a spa, a pool, etc. I should point out that the parking, all this, the way this has been designed, and you can see all of these roads as they're designed, all of those roads are hugging the contours. Okay, so what that does for us is that when you are using the contours to build your roads and to place your buildings, that allows you to remove fewer trees in order to do that. If you started going uphill, straight uphill, all of a sudden you have to eliminate a lot of trees. This situation, you eliminate fewer trees. And what's nice about that is there's still this layering effect that's between these different levels. And those trees act as a very nice screen. The other thing I should point out is that in this phase, there will be 4 acres of gardens that are built around that main building. So instead of being surrounded by parking, it'll be surrounded by gardens. And then the fourth phase is the completion of the trail system. You can see there's trails that run all through here now. And those all double back and come down into that old road bed that goes down to the Galena River Trail. So if people are walking down the Galena River Trail, they're gonna be able to come up here and they're gonna be able to do a 1.5 mile loop around the site, including a little bridge over a ravine here. They'll be walking through gardens, they'll be walking through vineyards, they'll be walking through forests. It should be quite nice. These cottages are all kind of tucked up against the woods. These cottages down here are out in the vineyard. The good news is that when the project is built out, there will be 80% open space. In other words, we are only building on 20% of the land with our roads, with our buildings, with our parking lots. The rest of that space is green space, and it's just right about 80%. So the other issue is access. And so our goal is to get people's cars on our site. Our goal is to keep their cars there, not keep them there, but keep their cars there. Now, we have a couple of ways to do that. Number one, the project, as you've already tell how close it is to downtown. It's only about a 10-minute walk to downtown Galena from this project. The other thing that we would provide, so we want people to keep their cars on the project. We want them to either utilize their ability to walk, or we're have them utilize a shuttle that would run continuously. Now, the shuttle would come out of the project, go on to Blackjack, come up to 4th, and instead of trying to make the left-hand turn at 4th, it would make a right-hand turn on 4th. And so it would go up 4th to Bethilier, and then that is where, right there, there's a left-hand turn lane at Bethilier. The bus would then make a left at Bethilier, go down Bethilier. It would stop at the state historic sites. It would stop at the visitor center where people can get off and then go across to the, walk across the pedestrian bridge by Grant Park. Or they can stay on the bus and they'll make a right-hand turn over the bridge to get over to Main Street and then make a right-hand turn at the light, go down by the levee, make that turn between City Hall and the post office, make a left turn again on the Main Street, come back down to the light, make a left-hand turn at 20, go across the bridge, and when it gets to 4th Street, it would make a right-hand turn and go back up into the development. The other major concern, I think, that's been out in the community, and it's always been a concern of ours, has been lighting. And so what I'd like to do is to introduce Giulio Pedota, who is a lighting designer that I have worked with over the last 12 or 15 years on various projects. And I like him to kind of get involved here. And Giulio wants to come in. And so what Giulio is going to do is to talk to you about that lighting is not accidental. Lighting is design. And we literally have total control over how this project is going to look based on the way we know how to design and control lighting. So Giulio.
All right, so my name is Giulio Pedota, and if you want my address, it's 363 West Erie, Suite 400. That's in Chicago, Illinois. Okay. And I have to admire the owner and the architect for engaging a lighting designer because we've been around for over 50 years. And when you engage a lighting designer, it's because you care about the project, not only the buildings, but also the surroundings. Okay, and so that's kind of admirable. We are an internationally recognized lighting design firm. We have offices in Chicago, in New York, in Dallas, in Minneapolis, San Francisco, and all the way to Melbourne, Australia. We love what we do. We're committed to sustainability and environmentally friendly approaches. And we're very detailed about it, especially because the standards are there. The United States of America through the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America has created the standards for us to, have positive impact into the environment, okay, through lighting design. Okay, I'm showing two of the projects that we have recently, finished in the city of Chicago, and I'm going to talk today about just an overview, okay, of the environmental, related issues associated with lighting. Okay, most of them are related to the practice of lighting design. Okay, I'm not going to get into the technology, but because we all know that the world of LEDs have really improved our world. Okay, so I'll talk about the IES lighting zones. Okay, the light pollution, light trespassing, glare, correlated color temperature. This is the actual quality in color, okay, of the light. The intensity and illuminance, how bright sources are, okay, and the energy codes and controls. We'll go through it quick, but hopefully it'll be a very comprehensive story. So, because of the sensitivity of this project, and Dave talked about it in the wooded area, okay, we're going to subject this project to what we call the RP33, which is the IES recommended practice for exterior environmental lighting. Okay, this is kind of like the Bible for lighting designers. Okay, and we're going to subject this project to lighting zone 2, okay, which comes with a whole level of lighting requirements. Okay, and it's for an area that has low ambient light. So what does that mean? Okay, well, the lighting zone for this project is associated with a bug rate, okay, which is a common metric, okay, to classify fixtures to minimize the biggest offenders, which are light pollution, light trespassing, and glare. Okay, we all know what light pollution is. It's any light directed upwards into the sky, right, that impedes your view of the starlit sky, okay, or a clear night. Right? And we know what light trespassing is. It's any light that is intended for a site that trespasses into a neighbor or intrudes into, in this case, a wooded area. Okay, so we have the technology and the means and the vocabulary, okay, to address this item. Okay, we'll talk about backlight, okay, which is that light that we all see at the parking lots that is intended, to illuminate an area, and it ends up illuminating the area that is opposite, okay, to the area that's being intended to be illuminated. Okay, and then the uplight, which we already talked about. This project, will not, okay, I want to make a point of this, will not have any light going up into the sky. We will utilize, all full cutoff fixtures. Okay, and that's important because as Jim is going to show you, what sort of light pollution looks like in that particular area. 80 feet up into, from 0. So glare, glare is the one aspect that I think if we don't control, you're going to be able to see it from downtown Galena. And again, by utilizing full cutoff fixtures, and staying away from that high zone and that very high zone, okay, we know that those are the angles that will offend, okay, anybody looking at that site up, okay, in that hill. Okay. If we are to categorize the fixtures, we know, okay, which ones are the fixtures that are not full cutoff, that are not shielded, that are what we call glare bumps. You're looking at it on the upper left, photo, those 3 glare bumps, okay? That's a poor design. That's when you don't engage a lighting consultant that it's environmentally friendly and knows what they're doing. So, for this project, we're going to be looking at the fixtures, that are at the bottom right, that are shielded, that have all kinds of different accessories, okay, to reduce uplight, okay, and backlight. one of the biggest offenders, you see them in all the cities. In the city of Chicago, we have them. I noticed that approaching Galena, the acorn picture is also here. And so this is a picture that worked for many, many years, but it does create a lot of light pollution. And so in today's world, we have, again, the full cutoff pictures that you can see, this is self-explanatory when you look at the photos, right? The bottom left is our ideal condition to illuminate roadways, parking lots, and so forth. You can see that the sources are LEDs in the right photo, and they're concealed. They're regressed and concealed, okay? And they direct the light where you want it, and there's no light, okay, straying away. The same thing goes with the illuminated ballers, okay? You can see that there are ballers out there that, I'm gonna use the word again, they're glare bombs. They're utilized frequently, even in today's world. And we completely oppose of that approach. You know, even when they shield them, sometimes they use a very high intensity. And it does the same damage because you're lighting a floor that is probably concrete or pavers, and they're really light value, and they reflect light up into the sky. Okay? So our ideal condition would be what you're seeing at the bottom, which is a full cutoff, baller that delivers adequate illumination. It has the right color temperature, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And it doesn't glow at night. Okay, it just delivers adequate lighting to the walkways. The same goes with the lighting poles, which are the biggest offenders. We'll keep an eye on that very closely. Again, you have these really bright glare bombs, okay, that scatter light everywhere. And I think probably the bottom left is what would be representative of a good approach, full cutoff picture with a warm color temperature. You see the light on the path. It would be probably typical in the parking lot for this project. And then if you look at the bottom right, you see that we have the different light distributions, okay, to manipulate the light, to get it where we want it and avoid having it where we don't want it. Okay? And this is just an illustration again, of glare, which is probably the biggest, offender. Glare is, one thing that if you happen not to plan ahead and end up, with it in a project, there are different accessories out there that you can incorporate with a picture. Obviously, this will not be the case for our project because we will make, plans to incorporate all the sort of glare reducing, aspects of the picture, yeah? Using louvers or rock guards or barn doors, whatever it is. Okay? And then there is a color temperature. We see this a lot where at night, especially with now that we're more aware with the circadian aspect of the human being, we know that now that any white light that has a blue spike at night, it conflicts with the human's circadian rhythms. And so the industry is moving really towards a more warm color temperature at night. And you can see that, the difference between the bad and the good, okay? And not only it's the color temperature, but also the intensity. Those two combined to create a very warm, gentle, project up in the hill. Okay. And then this is just to show, we're recently with a car, dealer that sells cars in a very unique way. And we had to defend them in a particular project. And it was great to know that we have all the technology in terms of lighting software to do the calculation to control the lighting. And we know that the red, is the high levels, the yellow is mid levels, the green start working into the low levels, and anything that is blue is very minimal. Okay. So having these tools at hand allows us to plan ahead, okay, to make sure that the project is done successfully from the environmental point of view. Then there is the cabins, which I think is in a way, the sort of romantic aspect of this project, we think that they need to be introduced in the project from the lighting perspective in a way that they don't intrude or offend the site. And we do this by very simple methods that are listed up there, like, having exterior sconces that are shaded and don't blow outwards. Okay? Utilizing interior finishes that are medium tone, as opposed to utilizing white, right? So that there's not a lot of light reflecting from within the cabin outwards. Okay? And you're utilizing warm indirect lighting, okay? Uplighting ceilings that are made out of wood or medium tone finishes, so that there's not a lot of light, going out the windows. And then, because of cabins that are, have tasks, whether you're working on the kitchen or whether you're reading or having dinner, there's ways that we also can control the interior glow that may go outside of the building. And, with that, we use, for example, just concealed task lighting, under the kitchen cabinets. But it's not only concealed, it's warm, and the finish that is behind it is also warm. Okay, we use shaded table lamps, okay, to provide low ambient light, or shielded task lights. We see a lot of people, having really bright task lights when it's not necessary. In terms of the fixtures that would be installed in the ceiling, right, to provide general lighting or task lighting, we would make every source either have a regress source, and shielded. And if we can't do that, then we'll add louvers and so forth. But we'll make sure that nothing in the ceiling is shining and being offensive. And last, in the cabins, there's always technology that's been around for a very long time, which is a simple dimmer, so that the end user can dim the fixtures at night, but they contain that glow that is already warm. So in terms of the buildings and the sort of nighttime appearance, we have great strategies. First of all, we try to avoid facade lighting as much as we can, and just allow the building to glow from within. It's a beautiful sort of poetic, imagery, if you will. And then keeping the exterior lighting to a minimum and contained within the building. On top of that, we use warm color temperatures, no white light. It amazes me how, people are buying these cool white lamps and putting them in their house, and then at night they turn them on and they're really bright. And as we know, it interferes with the melatonin production, right, of the human being, which is so needed to sleep well at night. So we will be utilizing color temperatures that are warm, and on top of that, we'll be dimming the lighting systems. And here's another example, keeping the facade lighting to a minimum, contained within the building, and avoid any spillage of lighting outside of the building. And again, utilizing color temperatures that are warm and at a low intensity. And then, there's the energy code. The energy code, this project will be bound by an energy code. And the energy code is very clear that depending on the zone that you're in, whether it's zone 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have to adhere to a certain amount of energy consumption. So that by itself is going to limit how much light you can put in a project. As a last, or in addition to that, I should say, we'll have astronomical time clocks, motion sensors, dimming systems, local dimmers, like in the cabins. So we have total control of the light. So I'm personally very excited, about this project because, I'm a person that I'm a LEED certified consultant, and I'm really for sort of environmentally friendly technologies and approaches. Thank you very much.
So, one thing I forgot to mention, by the way,
on the phase 4, I just remember this as I was showing you. Forgot to mention that there is another building that is introduced in that phase, which is a winery. We have planted that vineyard in phase 1 that I mentioned. And then in that southeast corner of the site, there is going to be about a 6,000 square foot building, which will be a winery, a working winery. The lower level, they will actually produce, they'll make wine there. And then the upper level, they would probably do some kind of tastings. So, sorry, I meant to mention that. So I wanted to tie then what Julio said about lighting to our project in particular. And so Julio helped us develop some renderings that, in his professional opinion, are representative of what this project is going to look like when it's really lit. So what I'm going to do is show you an example of what it's not going to look like. And so that's this slide. So this slide is utilizing all of the wrong strategies. Number one, you've got lights inside the building that are exposed, that are lights coming, spilling out of the building. We have highly reflective finishes like white. The street lights are, aren't shielded, and so there's a lot of light that's spilling out into the site, which we don't want. With the way we're designing this, we would go from what this is, and it would look more like this, or like that. So from that to that. So you can see all of the light sources are indirect in the cabins. The finishes in the cabin will be darker and it will not be reflective. The street lighting will be bollard type lighting that is low and doesn't have what, as Julia refers to as glare bombs. All that light is going down to where you need it. And these are the strategies that will prevent the building, the project in general, from looking like it's lighting up the whole hillside. These are some images. This is from a neighbor's house. Again, this series of images is trying to give people an idea of what this project will look like from various places in town. This happens to be a neighbor's house, and so we rendered it in the summertime. This is the project fully built out. Of course, we know that the project fully built out in the summertime. Yes, you're not going to see it, but that's not always the way it is. Sometimes it's winter. And so here's what it looks like in winter. And now you can see some of those cottages are starting to be introduced here, 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 and here. And then then we say, well, what happens at night? So utilizing those lighting strategies that Julio is using, then at night, that will look something like that. Here's another view. This is from South Bench Street. Looking almost directly across the Marine Hospital. You might be able to see the little bit of the top of the Marine Hospital there. Of course, this is in the summertime. Again, this site in summer is going to be hard to see from practically anywhere. But this is what it will look like in the wintertime, and then this is what it will look like at night in the wintertime. We've also provided some images from other points in town. So this is an image from in front of the old high school up on Prospect Street. So our site is right, mostly it's back up in here, you can hardly see it, but the top part of the site is back up in, like right here. So I'm going to do a little zoom in on that. And so look closely because when the project is completely built out, it will go from looking like this to that. So from that to that, and those buildings are positioned from our models onto the onto the photograph as a montage to give you an idea of what the project will look like from a distance. Also, at night from a distance, again, this is back up at Prospect. Our project is back up in this corner. If we lighted the project in a poorly designed way, you might end up seeing something like that. Okay,
You have, first of all, warm color lights, it'd be very bright, and you get that glow that you sometimes see in the distance when you look at cities that are well lit. You'll see a glow above it. That would be the glow from the main parking lot where we have the 207 cars. That's not what our project will look like. With Julio strategies, the project will look like that. Anyway, the next part of our presentation is Beth, who's kind of lost her voice, is going to talk about how the projects, now we're getting more into the specific zoning stuff, the technical parts of the zoning ordinance, and we're going to go through that. So Beth is going to start by talking about how the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Hi, I'm Beth Baranski, 1015 South Bench Street. So comprehensive plans are created to document consensus about how a community would like to evolve over time. That consensus allows for the protection of valued community elements like natural and historic resources, and for the efficient use of infrastructure, water, sewer, roads. The plan serves as an important reference for the development of the zoning ordinance. And I'd like to briefly highlight some of the items in our plan that the Parker Resort project is consistent with. I believe there are 3 pertinent topics under our plan's vision statement: local economy, growth, and physical environment. The city of Galena will strive to diversify its local economy and improve the business environment for tourism by retaining existing businesses, actively attracting clean new businesses with good paying jobs, promoting its quality experience and heritage. The city of Galena will strive to preserve its small town image by managing physical growth with sound planning and zoning that emphasizes the preservation of the historic district, infill development, and the efficient and attractive development of new land. The city will be proactive in annexing land to achieve its vision. The city of Galena will strive to be a beautiful place to live and visit by adhering to a high standard of cleanliness, maintaining high quality air, water, and soil, protecting our historical and architectural character, and protecting and enhancing our natural resources. Now I'd like to go through some of the goals and objectives in the plan that support this request. Under economic development, Galena will build upon its successful tourism industry, and we should work to address parking. Parking could be addressed with a combination of ramps and/or shuttle parking, and we should encourage the development of courtesy vans by area hotels. Again, under transportation, it's recommended that we use shuttle services to relieve parking pressure downtown. The plan also recommends that we encourage visitors to walk from parking areas into the downtown by creating paths from parking areas that take visitors past historic structures. Under stormwater management, it's recommended that we improve stormwater management in newly developing areas to ensure that current stormwater concerns are not exacerbated. Under police and fire department, we should address the capital equipment and staffing needs for the police and fire departments, as both will require additional equipment and staff as the community grows and tourism increases. The first goal under historic preservation is to maintain and improve the condition of the historic structures in the community. In section 6.2 of our plan on historical and cultural resources, the Marine Hospital is included in a list of major historic structures in the city, and is the only structure on this list that has not yet been rehabilitated. In spite of the fact that the original cupola and the extensive verandas have been removed, and as Jim mentioned earlier, we've received the State Historic Preservation Office's opinion that the hospital is eligible for listing on the National Register. We've also submitted for Galena's landmark designation, which will provide oversight for the rehabilitation work. Under tourism and natural resources, we should utilize the natural resources and recreation potential of the Galena area to provide another inroad and marketing point for the tourism industry. Identifying those natural resources that make the Galena region unique, such as the terrain, access to the Galena and Mississippi rivers, etc., and begin to market these as another reason to visit the Galena area. and work with others to develop trails and natural areas. Under recreational trails, identify structures, sites, and locations within and outside the city that should be connected via a recreational path. Under preserving natural beauty, protect and preserve the natural beauty in and around the city of Galena, while continuing to use the natural beauty of the region to attract tourists. Ensure that development is consistent with the premise of protecting the environment. Direct growth to targeted areas to ensure that the city grows in a compact, efficient manner that takes up a smaller amount of this finite resource. Under urban service extension, require development to occur in a rational, planned out pattern to prevent leapfrog development and allow the city to extend services in a logical manner. Under lighting standards, it's recommended that we preserve the views provided in the night sky in and around Galena. Under annexation, require that all new development on the edge of the city, annexed to the city, to gain access to city sewer and water utilities. Our plan recommends that we protect and maintain the rural character of the city of Galena and the surrounding areas as the city and the region continue to grow. And finally, under provision of urban services, we are to direct growth to those areas that can be economically served by city sanitary sewer and water services. This project fits well into the areas proposed for growth. So this area is the Marine Hospital site, and this is the proposed area to be annexed to complete the project area. And then these areas that are shaded are the proposed annexation areas that were identified in the 2003 plan. This is the contiguous growth area map. This was done later in working with the county, and it's related to the county's planning efforts where they wanted to direct development into the municipalities. So they worked with the municipalities to identify the growth areas. And so you see, these yellow areas here, and here's the project. And the other growth areas. In general, I think it's fair to say that the Galena Comprehensive Plan promotes thoughtful growth. The zoning ordinance is designed to implement the goals laid out in the plan. And at this point, I'll turn the presentation back to Jim so he can explain how the Parker project specifically relates to the zoning request.
All right, I'm the end, sorry. Huh? Yeah, you can go. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about the zoning aspects of the project and why the project is in conformance with the zoning ordinance, starting with the question of why a planned unit development. So from the city's perspective, a PUD is a great zoning tool because it provides the zoning board and the city more control over the use of a property. If an applicant were granted a change to a particular zoning district, general commercial, let's say, then the applicant could include any use listed in that district by right. In a PUD, the applicant declares the uses of the property at the beginning of the planning process and is held to them. The current zoning for the Marine Hospital is limited agricultural, which will also be the case when the Regan parcel is annexed into the city. The limited agricultural zoning district has a floor area ratio of 25%. And for those in attendance who are unfamiliar with what floor area ratio is, it is the total square footage of construction that is allowed on a given site as a percentage of the total land area. Also, limited ag has a minimum landscape surface ratio, which is essentially the amount of green or open space of 50%. That means under the current zoning, the owner could by right build 858,000 square feet of buildings. The owner could also cover half the site, in this case, roughly 39 acres with buildings, driveways, and other paved areas, without having to come before the zoning board with respect to intensity standards. We are proposing a PUD for this project with an underlying default district of planned commercial. There are many permitted uses, some by right and some by special use, allowed in the planned commercial district. The major uses we are declaring are hotel motel accommodations, commercial indoor entertainment, which is essentially restaurants and banquet facilities, and outdoor entertainment as a principal and accessory use, which is essentially music on a terrace that is not amplified, consistent with the city ordinances. The floor area ratio in planned commercial is 30%, and the minimum landscape surface ratio is 25%. We are, however, proposing a far lower FAR of 10% instead of the currently allowed FAR of 25% under limited ag, or the 30% FAR for planned commercial. In other words, we will be building 60% less of what is currently allowed. We are also proposing a minimum landscape surface ratio of roughly 80%. In other words, roughly 80% must be kept in open or green space, instead of the currently allowable minimum of 50% under limited ag, or the even lower 25% minimum in planned commercial. We believe we are creating a resort in a park-like setting. Incidentally, and for comparison's sake, Grant Park here in Galena has a roughly 84% landscape surface ratio, and we will be approximately 80%. The value of the PUD is that we are declaring these uses and intensities right now and cannot vary from them without going back to the zoning board and city council and asking for permission. What we are asking for in this application is consistent with the ordinance. The exceptions that we are asking for are allowed by special use permit. For instance, we are asking that we be allowed to provide hotel motel accommodations by right. In the ordinance, it requires a special use permit. We are also asking that the eventual main building exceed 25,000 square feet by right. A special use permit is required to exceed 25,000 square feet and could go to a maximum of 75,000 square feet. We are asking for 50,000 square feet. We are also asking that the outdoor dining terrace, the Marine Hospital, the cafe building, the main building, and the winery exceed the 15% of the interior areas they serve. This request is a direct result of the challenges over the last couple of years, with an acknowledgement that outdoor dining will continue to be popular even after the COVID era is over. Finally, we are asking that the terraces I mentioned be allowed to provide non-amplified, which is required by ordinance, music for weddings and special occasions. This is normally permitted as an accessory use with a special use permit. By every other metric, this project complies with the ordinance, including 1, compliance with the natural resource protection standards in sections 154.501 to 154.510. These are the standards that deal with tree preservation, steep slopes, floodplains, and wetlands. 2, compliance with the parking, lighting, and landscaping standards provided in sections 154.601 through 154.605. These are the standards that deal with off-street parking and circulation, lighting, which we've discussed extensively, landscaping, and buffer yards. 3, compliance with the performance standards provided in sections 154.701 to 154.713. These are the provisions that deal with smoke emissions, excessive glare, heat, odors, etc. 4, compliance with the signage standards provided in sections 154.801 through 154.815. 5, the project complies with the standard that the plan shall be organized harmoniously and efficiently in relation to topography, the size and type of property affected, the character of the adjoining property, and type and size of buildings. And 6, the project complies with the city requirements for the provision of water and sewer and site drainage. The project is also consistent with the approval criteria for for a zoning map amendment, specifically the following. Number 2, there has been a change of character in the surrounding area due to the construction of the Galena River Trail. Also, because of the construction of the new sewage treatment plant south of the city, this area is now part of the facility plan area that can access city water or city sewer. 3, the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding area. We have demonstrated that the project will not create adverse impacts such as excessive storm runoff, water and noise pollution, excessive nighttime lighting, or other nuisances. Any adverse traffic impacts are being mitigated by creating adequate parking and shuttle service. 4, as discussed in detail by Beth earlier, the proposal is in conformance with and in furtherance of the implementation of the comprehensive plan. This is especially true of the vision section and the goals and objectives section. 5, adequate public facilities and services are available. A new water and sewer system will be installed in the proposed development. Number 6, at over 78 acres, there is an adequate supply of land in the subject area to accommodate the zoning and community needs. And number 8, with respect to whether there is a need in the community for the proposal, the project rehabilitates a historic landmark and provides a low-density development that both maintains the rural and natural character while adding significantly to the tax base. This project will help reduce the pressure to convert residential properties to visitor lodging. Specific benefits that support a PUD are as follows. Number 2, the project is providing adequate off-street parking that will benefit downtown Galena through the ability for people to walk to town from the development or use the resort's shuttle bus. 3, the project will include 6 acres of vineyards and 4 acres of gardens, which will be publicly accessible. 4, the project will have 1.5 miles of trails available for use by the public with access to the existing Galena River Trail. And 6, the buildings in the development will be designed to accommodate renewable energy resources such as solar and geothermal. Where possible, buildings will be oriented to maximize passive solar potential. Overhangs on the main building, winery, and cafe will be designed to modulate seasonal solar gains. Building and site lighting will be LED and will be designed to reduce glare and spillover. All these strategies will reduce the building's energy loads. And 7, the project is protecting natural resources, including wetlands and steep slopes, while also providing 80% open space. The downhill sides of most of the cottages will be perched on columns, which reduces disturbance of the slopes. Getting close. In terms of the preliminary PUD plan review criteria, the project conforms with the following. A, the ODP review criteria in Division B. C, the applicable site plan review criteria in 154-914. And E, the specific density intensity of uses for all areas included in the preliminary plan. So the decision tonight is to consider approval of a preliminary plan for a PUD. This means the project will come back to the zoning board for each phase for final approval to verify that the final plans are consistent with the preliminary plan. To close, I believe we have demonstrated that this project is consistent with the Galena zoning ordinance, and I ask that you send a positive finding of fact to the City Council for their consideration. At this point, I'd like to ask the board if you have any questions.
What would be the height of the restaurant and the other buildings compared to the Marine Hospital? You showed the cabins, but what would be that height relative to the Marine Hospital?
You mean their actual building heights?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like compared to, if I was looking over it, how high would like the restaurant be?
well, the Marine Hospital is 53 feet high. So it will be probably the highest building on the site. The main building, which is at this point still not even really a design, we just are visualizing what this building will be. We know what the size would be. Probably would be a 2-story building, so probably would be less than 40 feet.
It was a project to enter and exit
onto Blackjack. I mean, it looks like a pretty straightaway part of the road, but I can't tell from the map that. I drive that road all the time. Is there a lot of like a hill there? What I'm thinking about is it gonna be easy to see traffic coming from both directions? Yeah, so what I did is I checked with Steve Kiefer, county engineer. And together we looked at the locations and he drove it. And that location that we have is the one that he selected for us.
Why is it, Jim, it's so important to do the whole thing now? I mean, why do you want, can you do, I mean, why do you want it approved the whole thing now instead of doing it in stages?
Well, you want to approve so you have some level of certainty, right? There's a large investment that's being made into infrastructure costs, into road costs. As you know, it's a phased plan. So the plan would go, it may be first year, you've got phase 1, year and a half, and maybe another couple of years for phase 2. So you're talking about a duration that could go, 6, 8, 10 years. But, and I'm kind of speaking on behalf of the developer here, but I think I know enough to know that when you're making this kind of investment, you'd like to know that there's some certainty that you can continue moving forward.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of the request?
If they haven't signed it already, they can.
My name is Jim Rigdon, 2190 North Blackjack Road, Galena. My family has owned that property since middle 1960s. It was going to go up for sale, one way or another. We had it appraised for ag property, and there's actually with the area that it's in, there's probably no way we'd ever think of selling it as ag property. It was going to be sold to some sort of development. But we were going to sit on it until it was. Mr. Hooten had approached us and we talked to him. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character. I met the man, and I think if you look at what is presented here today, I think you understand that he's not somebody that is not concerned with what he does to the area. I think he's thought it out, and he brings in lighting experts and everything else, checking with the county, whatever. And I know that everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a desire of what goes on. I worked for the city of Galena for better than 2/3 of my life, and I enjoyed it. I loved it here. When I started here in the middle 70s, this town was falling apart. And there's opposition and everything we do, but we have survived. We've done real well. I think you can credit that to zoning boards, and I went through a number of them, city councils, mayors, and everything, and I think we've done a real good job. I live right there. That's my house that we're describing there. And I've lived there, and some of the neighbors there, I love them. They're friends. They're good people. And they even approached me and said, Jim, there's nothing against you personally. And it's not. I don't take it that way. They're to their opinion, and they want to know what's going on. And I think this presentation here today actually showed that there is concerns. When they met at our house with some of the close neighbors, and they had some concerns, and I think they're starting to address them. They looked at dangerous intersections, they looked at lighting, and no matter what development there is in town, you're going to have some of that. But you got to look at what's best. Like I was pointing out, I think we've done a very good job. I think there's talking when the bike trail went in, is that, boy, we've ordered it too. We're worried. Everybody said, well, there's going to be people running all over your property. They're going to be trespassing, litter and everything like that. I work for the city. There's no litter there. They've done a nice job. I think they give it a lot of thought and everything is what we okay. And like I said, we were going to sell this property, and it wasn't going to ag. And so it was going to go to a developer. And I think if you look at this, I think this is a developer that will listen and work with people, you know, and I think he's got the good for it, so. So I hope I don't offend anybody else, but there's opinions, it's everything that happens in life, there's two sides to it. So my family personally has liked the idea that this is something that, you know, is preserving. There was talk about people cutting all the trees down, and there was talk about tearing the Marine Hospital down. Those things aren't happening. You can see what's going on here, so. So my opinion on that is I think it would help Galena. I think it would bring in some pretty good tax money, hotel, motel tax, we know what it does. I think it matches in with bike trails, walking trails, canoeing, and things that we want to promote. So, my opinion.
Any questions, Jim? Anyone else to speak in favor?
I am signed in, yes. My name is Jeff Holder. I live at 254 Council Fire Circle. Been a resident of Galena for 31 years now. And prior to that, my family would visit throughout the 1980s. I've experienced Galena before and after its various transitions. And I find the quality of life has been better when Galena is experiencing economic growth. Historic Main Street properties need upkeep and tender loving care, which requires money. It is easier to do when businesses are thriving and paying rents. The very idea that someone would want to restore and develop a dilapidated property and invest money into this community is a worthwhile endeavor. The fact that they are open, transparent, and willing to discuss ways in which to develop the property with the least amount of environmental impact is applaudable. Therefore, I like to go on record in support of this project. Any questions?
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet.
Anyone else?
My name is Rick Boyda, 251 Council Fire Circle. I've come before you in a couple different capacities. I sat at those chairs for over 10 years in the same position, so I appreciate what you do and the thought and careful deliberation that you take to do your job, because it's not always easy. I know of some of the concerns through what's been published in the Gazette, and I think the applicant has very thoroughly tried to address the major concerns that people have. Your decision to approve or deny this request, however, should be based on the criteria in the current code and the comprehensive plan, which involves the input from the entire community. And I can't stress that enough. And a change in view or surrounding change to the landscape is really not a relevant issue of concern in making your decision, but issues of concern such as access, traffic, and lighting definitely are, and I think those have been thoroughly addressed. In looking at this particular project, the land is either in or adjacent to the Galena city limits, and the surrounding development pattern is one of higher density mixed-use development. With the current applicant proposing to leave 80% of the land as open space, and with an overall density that is considerably lower than what is allowed by right in the agricultural district, I would hardly call this project an intensive use of the land. In fact, for all the years that I sat in those chairs, I would say this is one of the most thorough and comprehensive presentations I've ever seen. And judging it on meeting necessary zoning and planning criteria guidelines, I think they've gone over and above to address the immediate neighbors' concerns. So on those criteria, it would seem to me that it's almost impossible not to vote yes for this project, and that it dovetails perfectly with Galena's history of promoting both historic preservation and tourism. I've also been a commercial real estate appraiser for over 35 years, and I've worked extensively on projects like this in tourist markets across the country.
One aspect that is very unusual of this project is the applicant is not asking for any tax breaks. He's not asking for any city handouts. He's not asking for any help to defray any cost for infrastructure. So there's really no cost to the city if this project moves forward. I think it's also been proven that the market has shown that if we want the historic Marine Hospital renovated, its adaptive reuse is going to have to be done as part of a larger project. You just can't renovate this building on a standalone basis. It's too costly and it would not be economically feasible. In terms of economic development, I mean, this is potentially huge for the city of Galena. I don't know what the budget is on this project, but based on my experience, I would think this is easily a $30 to $40 million all-in investment if it's fully built out. And when you talk about the economic impact of that type of investment, you're talking about a significant number of local jobs for construction, several permanent jobs to run it once it's completed, a huge boost to the city's real estate tax base, with an expanded commercial base, hopefully reducing the burden on homeowners, which is currently pretty high. Huge increase in hotel motel taxes to support tourism marketing and growth, increased sales to local shop owners, restaurants, and other tourist businesses, which would drive additional sales taxes to cover city expenses. This is truly a rising tide raises all boats phenomenon, and I think over time would more than likely result in increasing, not decreasing, property values. Galena has remained vibrant because we've been able to adapt and change, with tourist markets having to consistently evolve in order to grow and remain relevant. Therefore, I fully support this project and encourage you to approve this once in a generational opportunity. Thanks. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Rose Noble. I live at 11438 West Horseshoe View Lane in Galena. I am the CEO and president of Greater Galena Marketing, otherwise doing business as Galena Country Tourism, and you might know it as Visit Galena. And although we are the city's destination management organization that handles all of their marketing, branding, and reputation, I would like to note some tourism statistics that will hopefully persuade you into voting in favor of this development. But it's important to note that I'm not here as a Galena, or that I'm here as a Galena resident and not as an official statement from our organization. With that said, I'm just going to give you a quick background. I have lived in the city, lived and worked in the city for 17 years. My husband is a teacher at the Galena High School. We've both been involved in many organizations throughout our tenure here, including many youth sports and arts and science programs. We have a vested interest in seeing this community prosper. We would love for this to be a place that our children return to after college and want to maybe start a business or work here and have the quality of life that we currently have living in this area. I have lived downtown. I lived in Dewey Avenue for a year, lived on Dodge Street for about 10 years. I actually lived on 4th Street, the street that we've been talking about tonight, for a year, and now I live out off of Gates Road. That said, I support this project, and I want you to see me as a true Galenian, a neighbor that's coming to you in favor of this project. I want to quickly just talk about a couple of tourism impact numbers, and I'm so happy that there's a crowd here because this is something that we try to educate all of our residents on, and I don't think that they're really aware. The fact of the matter is tourism, visitor spending heavily impacts our quality of life. Yes, it can have a negative impact, but Galena, it has a much positive impact on how we live, what we do, what we're interested in, how we recruit business, how we recruit young families, so many things. In 2020, which are the last economic tourism impact numbers that we have received from the Illinois Office of Tourism, this is taken by Tourism Economics, which is federally funded program. So this is a legit study. $251 million in visitor spending in our Joe Davies County. 251 million. There was 9.4 million in local tax revenue that was generated. That's not the lodging tax. That is sales tax, amusement tax, food and beverage tax. That is tax that goes back to the local government to put into their general budget, which actually does provide funding for roads, emergency services, police, schools, programming. In addition, it supported 2,484 jobs, tourism-related jobs, resulting in a payroll of $63 million. I am one of those positions that benefit from the tourism-related job. And we do know that there are some frontline jobs that aren't salary, but this is still our young people that are working part-time, our college kids that are coming back and having jobs in the summer, or people that return and do end up working in a salary position. And we always want to see that increase. This area, County County, actually generated $13.8 million for the state of Illinois, on top of the 9.4 that it generated for Cottages. These numbers are actually down 5% over 2019 because they were collected during 2020, which was the heart of the pandemic. As you know, March, April, May, June, we were quarantined. Usually we're seeing a 4% growth year over year. We are so ready to receive our 2021 numbers and even more excited to receive 2022 numbers. And keep in mind, these numbers do not include cannabis, which we do know visitors are participating in recreational cannabis when they're in our area. And that number is just going to be astronomical. So the point being, if people that live here aren't staying in our hotels, they are eating in our restaurants, they are walking on our trails, they are enjoying the wineries, they are enjoying the landscape and the entertainment that is here because of visitors. For all the restaurants downtown, I think during the pandemic, it especially showed that visitor attendance is so important. We have how many restaurants that rely on hundreds of people to come through on a weekend, and we just cannot satisfy those numbers through our local population. It's very important that we encourage tourism growth and promote and favor opportunities like this development. I think through thoughtful consideration, which I will echo the previous comments, this is one of the most thoughtful, considerate presentations I've ever seen when it comes to development in terms of the landscape, the surrounding neighbors, the preservation. This should really be considered as a win and a once in a lifetime opportunity for our community to grow. This will increase budget by so much, but if you are not interested in the numbers, the quality of place that it will provide to residents that get to check out the restored Marine Hospital, which I've been fortunate to do, and it is an amazing building. Residents will get to enjoy the winery. They will be able to do the trails. It will provide a shuttle service that takes people through our east side, which is notoriously under-traveled compared to Main Street. And there are some significant properties over there that we'd love to get people in. This just has a positive impact overall to a big win for our community in my opinion. And I am in favor, and I hope you consider doing the same.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Carol Sullivan. I live at 7211 Buck Hill Road, and I've been here since 1971 in Galena. I think it's really amazingly wonderful that someone is finally going to fix up this building. This should be a jewel in Galena. And right now, it's fixable. If we wait much longer, it might not be. And I think this is an opportunity to have this wonderful building be able to be fixed up, and we should take that chance. I too had questions before I came in tonight, and I really appreciate all of the detail that we heard about this project, and it answered a lot of my questions. I don't know Mr. Hooten, but I do know Jim and Beth Baranski, and I've known them for probably 30 years, and most of the people in this area have. They have done an enormous amount for this community. They've been on boards of directors. They have been on so many things. Beth has given so much time working about the environment of our county and water safety in our county. I know that these are people of enormous integrity, and I don't think they would do anything that they thought would harm this city. I think Galena is in their heart, and I don't think they would do anything to hurt it. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Earl Thompson, 704 Park Avenue. I think Jim's made an incredibly detailed presentation. I agree with all the points that have been made before me up here by the people speaking in favor. I'd like to speak to Dave, who I was referred to through friend and business associate who I've been working for about 10 years in accounting. And the quality of work that these guys do is incredible. I can speak to that firsthand. And I would also like to point out that his application for landmarking by the city, the historic landmarking application for be on the historic registry are not necessary as part of applying for the zoning application. He did that on zone as indication of his integrity to preserve the structure and environment.
Anyone else?
How's it going? I'm Jack Deeger at 314 3rd Street. And I've always wondered what this building would look like fully restored, and I think it's a great opportunity for Galena to bring a gem back to life. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Kathy, this is for people who are, you're speaking for it?
Right now it's for people who support the request.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard to hear you back here.
Really? Wow. Go ahead.
Joe Pedraza, belatedly at 3219 East Stagecoach Trail, Apple River, presently at 304 Territory Drive, Galena. Have operated a small research vineyard at 3172 East Stagecoach Trail, and now am involved in the University of Illinois Hemp Research Project. I am in support of this project. The exquisite presentation that was prepared here, the design, meets extraordinary environmental, architectural, and physical environment requirements. I have one reservation though, and it's not about the project, and it's not about your process of approving or disapproving it, and I hope that you approve it. I do have, my reservation is founded on this. I have a plat book here that's dated 2001 for Joe Davies County. Today I went to the courthouse with the intention of looking at a historic plat book. So I looked at one from the 60s. Then I ended up looking at one from 1913. And ladies and gentlemen, this county board is very negligent in its proactive planning for infrastructure. You as well as I know that during high tourist season, there are dangerous things that are occurring on Route 20, okay? The traffic congestion is getting more and more difficult. I'll give you a couple examples, one of which is an anomaly. One night I'm coming into town from 304 Territory Drive about 10:30, and there's a 2-mile long line of traffic at 10:30 at night, and it's pure dark out. And there's a gentleman hauling an ag implement with a tractor down Route 20, and he's going down and he's coming down, and he turns left on Blackjack. And I'm saying to myself, what is happening here with this kind of attitude and disrespect for people who are on Route 20? Now, there are other things that have occurred. Recently, there was an accident out by the golf course on the west side of town. And again, the traffic is congested. The line of traffic, either west or east, is like 2-3 miles long. Again, just to emphasize this point of view. This is an issue that the county board should have talked about and made plans for years ago. There is no way to divert traffic off of Route 20 coming from the east going west. And the opposite coming west going east. So how does this development contribute to that potential increase in traffic congestion on Route 20? The intersection of Blackhawk and Route 20 during high tourist season, it's impossible to get through there. Now, in conclusion, I support this development. It is exquisite. At the same time, there are issues that are out of the control of Jim and Beth and this city council of Galena. And they lead, the county board is negligent and proactive infrastructure planning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Brianne Van Hummer, I'm at 207 Distillery Street. I have been in Galena for a little over a year, about a year and a half. I came here during the pandemic to open up a new business on Main Street. My husband has as well as a business on Main Street. And we have 3 children, one at Galena Middle School, one at Galena Middle School, one at Galena Primary, and then the ARC as well. We love Galena. We are blessed that our business has done extremely well this past year and a half. And being a new business owner, I want, and also, you know, a resident of Galena, I do support this project. I think it will only bring greatness to Galena. The amount of thought and effort that went into it is incredible. And I feel like if we don't jump on this opportunity, who knows how bad it could be. Because so much thought and effort has been put into this. As a business owner, I bring an experience to Main Street. My business is called Scent Workshop, where people can come in and create their own fragrances. And this experience of bringing life and community closer to town with the walkability factor and all of that. You can see it right now, how businesses are doing so much better. Many businesses are closed right now because they are rebuilding their interior because they have extra money to do so. And that just goes into saying, you know, rebuilding the infrastructure in town is important, because even though we celebrate that we're a 200-year-old city, how are we going to make it up to 250 if we don't start investing in our community? And as a mother of 3 children, the tax money that comes into play with this business or with this resort coming is only better for our schools. So thank you, and please consider voting for us.
I got a question. What is your thoughts, since you live on the fleet, about the shuttle service?
You know, actually, it doesn't bother me because we have the trolleys that go up and down the Hilliard. So in my opinion, it's no different than having the trolleys.
Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else? Seeing none, anyone to speak in opposition, come forward. Remember to state your name and your address for the record. That you signed it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Clark. I live at 1107 4th Street. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I grew up in Galena. I was away for many years, and I've been lucky enough to move back home again fairly recently. My home is directly next to the area proposed for rezoning and development. It's also notable that I work as a natural resource planner with over 25 years experience in that profession. My neighbors and I have an enormous stake in this decision. If this were to move forward, it would have incredible, devastating, and permanent impacts to our lives and our homes. But this won't just affect us. This change is going to cause impacts to the entire community of Galena that have yet to really be considered and dealt with. I appreciate the effort and the detail that's gone into this presentation, but a lot of it is interpretation, a lot of it is renderings, a lot of it is hopes and dreams, quite frankly, about what might happen. But when you put something on the landscape, real things happen. And those are some of the things that I want to talk about tonight. The decision at hand, despite all the emphasis on rehabilitation of the Marine Hospital, is not really about rehabilitating the Marine Hospital. We all know that would be a wonderful thing to do. The decision at hand is whether planned commercial development is a better or more appropriate use for the land in question than its current agricultural or other use. And the answer is clearly no. Rezoning this area would not comply with the city's land use map. The maps were shown and contiguous development areas were shown, but those are identified on the city land use map as residential. They are not identified in that part as commercial development. There are no compelling reasons to throw aside that required compliance with the city's land use map to do something that exacerbates a number of issues identified in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was mentioned, and parts of it were highlighted, but all the things that are required or that are identified as issues were not fully addressed. Those plans, the city plan, the comprehensive plan, and the land use map were developed as noted, using professional analysis, community involvement, and they evaluated economic opportunities, traffic, infrastructure, et cetera. She went through a lot of that. The end result is identifying where growth should and can occur and where it should not. It clearly also recognizes that protecting residential neighborhoods and the small town and rural character associated with them are essential to maintaining a real and thriving community, which in turn is absolutely necessary to support our thriving tourism industry. As I mentioned, the city land use map does not identify areas for commercial growth on the east side. It identifies one small existing commercial area on top of the hill. And that's pretty separated physically from the heart of residential neighborhoods, as y'all know, and the historic district. Otherwise, it doesn't identify anywhere on the east side of Galena that's appropriate for commercial development or annexation for commercial use, and that's for good reason. There are a number of specific issues, one of which was just raised, that would be worsened by development in this area. First of all, dangerous traffic patterns and congestion. As we know, and as was just talked about, there are only 2 access points on and off the highway from Blackjack Road. Illinois DOT rates the Blackjack and Highway 20 intersection as critical for crash risk due to the number of severe crashes there. In my conversation with one of the folks at DOT, they also acknowledge that they have virtually no options to mitigate that congestion and risk at that intersection. The intersection with Bouthillier and Highway 20, which does have a turn lane, but where they're talking about moving the shuttle, is identified as a high tier crash risk intersection. The proposal, however, indicates parking for more than 400 vehicles, which means that as many as 400 guest vehicles would be routinely arriving and departing at a minimum. You gotta get to the resort, you gotta leave the resort, and then you may or may not drive back and forth while you're there. There would also be employee traffic, delivery and service trucks, and others. Those of us who actually live in that neighborhood already deal with significant existing traffic and safety issues, and the proposal would make those problems much worse. Walking is also an issue with traffic. I walk my dogs. Sometimes I literally cannot get across Highway 20. I take my life in my hands trying to do that. They do talk about, people could walk down from the resort onto the Galena River Trail and under the bridge into town that way. But I don't know about you, but I'm not going to carry my heavy shopping bags and walk that entire river trail and then have to go up a big hill and across 70 acres of property. I'm not going to do that after I eat a big dinner downtown. People will continue to drive. Emergency services is a concern. We are already concerned about the fact that fire and EMS services located on the west side have only one way to get across the river right now, and that's the Galena River Bridge. That's it. And that's a problem that was identified in the comprehensive plan. This proposal would add to traffic congestion on that single access point across the bridge, while increasing the need for emergency services on the east side. More people, more buildings, et cetera, and more crash risk equals more need for emergency services. The proposal is inconsistent with established and existing uses. Creating a commercial area with a large lodging facility, restaurants, winery, events, noise, activity, lights, et cetera, that come with all of those things, which, everybody doing those things will be enjoying themselves and so on, and that's great for them. But it would convert what is now a quiet residential and rural area into something entirely different. By establishing commercial development as the predominant use, it would put the neighboring residential area at risk of future variances or rezoning based on what would then become an existing adjacent established use. There's also some, what I would call honestly disingenuousness in comparing the floor area ratio of what could be built up there as farm buildings with what they're talking about building in terms of hotels, restaurants, and cottages. That's comparing apples and baseballs. It's not the same thing. Also, lights and noise. I really do appreciate that we were listened to when we talked about lights, and that an effort has been made to try to reduce light pollution. However, first of all, a large part of the hillside that would be developed is right in many of our yards. And it is, as they noted, visible from town. This proposal would still make it very visible at night. The fact is, windows are windows. Light shines out no matter what kind of glass or lighting plan you use. They would still be visible. I noted in a lot of those slides that the the bad pictures were taken in the dark of night, and the not so bad pictures were taken when there was still light in the sky, sort of exaggerating the difference in those things. But we all know that light is light and it shines out. And there would also be car headlights moving all over the hillside on busy nights. The cumulative amount of lights in the cabins, used along roadways, parking areas, buildings, and at events would light up a hill that is currently dark. Also, in 15 or 20 years, will they still be investing in the kind of lighting plan that is talked about today? Sound carries remarkably well across Davis Creek. I stand outside my house, right across Davis Creek from Jim Rickman's house, and on certain days, I hope he's not worried about this, but I can actually hear conversations happening up at Jim and Sharon's place. So much to say, but I mean, you really can't. It sort of echoes through that valley. And when you have noise of people, events, cars, the resort would be pet friendly. I have dogs, they bark. I worry about one dog barking down there. How many would be barking up on that hillside? Even unamplified music up at the event center would carry remarkably through that valley. All of this would change everything about our homes and our lives, but it would also change the character and feel of the main heart of Galena. This is just not the place to do this sort of thing. There's a lot of discussion about infrastructure and natural resources. The site is limestone bedrock. It's identified in the comprehensive plan as having severe limitations for buildings and roads. And geology doesn't change, it's just there. County geologic maps indicate the whole area is very high risk for contamination of the aquifer due to runoff and other concerns. Putting infrastructure into bedrock is not as simple as unzipping the ground along the dotted line on the map and then zipping it back up again. It would require enormous, incredibly disruptive excavation, possibly blasting and boring through rock with unknown impacts to our properties and to other resources. The proposal requires all of that infrastructure to transport water and sewage serving several hundred people. We just sort of think about that. Across nearly 70 acres or more than 70 acres through a hill of porous karst limestone, and then under or across the river to connect to city services. All of that would be difficult and expensive to troubleshoot and maintain down the road. When problems happen, the issues flow quite literally downhill into our yards, our creek, our river, and our aquifer. There's already a backlog of sewer, wastewater treatment, and water system projects listed in the city's capital improvement plan. Adding miles of complex infrastructure to that burden is not in the interest of the city as a whole. There was brief mention of runoff and flooding issues. Interestingly, in the plan proposal documents, the stormwater management plan fails to display Davis Creek. However, it's there, and it appears in the plan to place a constructed pond right within the channel of Davis Creek. This would create a dam structure that would pose a high risk to those of us who live downstream if it were breached during high water events. If in fact it is sited right in the channel of Davis Creek, it would need to be permitted by the Illinois DNR. The plans for stormwater management would also change the hydrology of Davis Creek with the bypass flow and other flow access points. The proposed access road would create another barrier to water flow that could potentially be breached during high water events. And the plan channels stormwater directly downhill through culverts and pipes into the Davis Creek floodplain. My neighbors, Chuck and Karen, have some of those one or two pipes that channel water already down into my yard, and I see what that does, and I'm fine with it. There's a little mini pond there sometimes. But we're talking about a massive, much larger amount of stormwater that would be diverted straight down into the Davis Creek floodplain. All of this would increase risks to homes and other property along Davis Creek during the flood events that we all know are common in that drainage. I want to talk about open space and natural resources for a moment. Again, I do planning, land use planning for a living, and the proposal uses the term open space and green space entirely incorrectly and very misleadingly. One definition in Illinois law is that open space means, quote, those undeveloped or minimally developed lands that conserve and protect valuable natural features or processes. The comprehensive plan uses the term green space and echoes that it's very similar to open space, but includes various vegetation characteristics. This proposal incorrectly includes in its totals of what it calls open space, any ground not covered by a building or pavement. That means small strips of ground between cabins, patches between parking areas and buildings, etc. The proposal would in fact remove and convert roughly 70 or 80, however many acres it is of open space, according to the legal definition and the definition of the comprehensive plan. It would remove woodlands, including many more trees than anticipated. We've all seen construction projects and we know what happens. More trees wind up going down. The contractor accidentally runs into a tree. Excavation results in exposure of a root structure and that tree is destabilized and needs to go. It happens all the time. It's just part of the process. To mitigate old hazards that old, damaged, or leaning trees present to buildings and vehicles, more trees go. Trees also die on their own, so relying on trees to screen everything is, again, fairly disingenuous. The proposal in the end would significantly reduce woodland and vegetative cover, and it would destroy wildlife habitat immediately next to an established greenway and a recreation area that the city worked really hard to acquire and create. In summary, this proposal really should never have seen the light of day, let alone make it as far as a public hearing. As residents, we should never have had to come down here tonight to try to defend our homes from something that really obviously shouldn't happen. As a professional planner, I am pretty amazed at the number of failures in this proposal. Yes, there's been a lot of detail, but the fact is it fails to comply with the city land use map. There's no getting around that. It actually worsens most of the issues that are identified as concerns in the comprehensive plan. There is no getting around that. It fails to meet actually many of the required conditions for rezoning and a PUD that were not specifically discussed. And it does not appear to have received any kind of review by departments or agencies such as the DNR, DOT, emergency services, etc., that I would have at least expected to be involved in initial evaluation of such a large, complex, and impacted proposal. It would take me all night to list more of the problems and deficiencies and to go step by step through how this doesn't meet all of these things. But what I've already said should be more than enough for you all to vote no on this proposal. It really makes no sense to even consider creating a large commercial zone in an area where that use has already been ruled out in the planning documents that we have because of the very serious issues that I've discussed, as well as those I don't have time to address. It has never been appropriate to put any commercial or other large development on that property, and it still isn't. Thank you.
Anyone else? My name is James Boho. I live out at 1477 South Rocky Hill Road up in Rice Township. So much of this is just brought other things in attention before I want to go to my address. I just want to tell you that there was a planned area out at the Ford Farm that had a band and was going to open up the space. And so we all got together, Blackjack, Irish Hollow, in Rocky Hill Road. We went to the county meeting and we had 32 residents there. We had over 55 people attend. And one of our second main issues was the intersection at 4th Street and the highway. And I spoke to that for quite some time. You cannot come in there if you have a truck without going into the oncoming lane. You can't make a right-hand turn out of there going up Highway 20 without going into the eastbound lane. If you have a tram now that's going to take its right-hand turn and go up,
then it is going to be in low gear. And we all see this when we all go there, when traffic is backed up and one truck after another while we're waiting here to get out is a low gear kind of crawl. And that backs up the traffic. When it also turns up at the top of the road, that's gonna back up traffic. So there are just so many plans and other things, and as being on the Freeway Watch Committee, the Illinois State IDOT Committee, the Environmental Committee for the Highway 20, I chaired the bypass for the Galena territory up here around that. And all of these issues just jumped right out at this project. So I support the first speaker tremendously. I'm here tonight over the concerns that the Marine Hospital project brings forward. My primary concerns are watershed and drain basins, runoff over land into streams, and impervious surfaces. These topics are part of the United States Geological Survey Water Science School. In order to get to these, simply search USGS Watershed Drainage Basin. This will bring you right into these topics that are part of this USGS school. Hours can be spent at this site with information directly relating to the Marine Hospital project. I have zeroed in on these three topics mentioned previously. The Marine Hospital proposal, pages 16 through 21, charts, maps, and information all brought forward. These charts, maps, information are speaking to a specific map location and are not enough to encompass the entire area affected by this project. I ask you please just to take a ride out of town on Blackjack Road to Irish Hollow. During this trip, look west, 30+ feet down into the valley's watershed drainage basin. Also, please note the erosion that is already affecting Blackjack Road on that side. On your way back, please pull into the East Galena Township maintenance area and now take a look at the east side of the road from this location. You will get a bird's eye view of the erosion taking place and the county's effort to continually work, find solutions, and spend money on the existing water problem and subsequent erosion. Coming back down on Blackjack Road, leaving East Galena Township, when you get to 1974 Blackjack, you start to travel up a hill. And it's right there, just go drive it. You will go up to the top of the hill and incline to the top of the hill. This incline totally blinds out any new construction proposed in the Marina Plans Road. So you're going up that road, and you get to the top. Now, literally in front of you on the left, they are coming out. And so you're blind. So I don't know where the county engineer has that. I'm sure he's probably correct, but still, it could fit in there, but that is something to be taken care of. I have brought an elevation map to highlight these concerns. I ask everyone to please simply take a look at the watershed drain basin and how this new proposed Marine Hospital access road is going to run right through the very heart of this Davis Creek Basin. You look at the map, you see his area of his pond. This is the very lowest of the low that you can go, where they are going to cross that, burn that road up, and put a pond in. The V-shaped road will dam and back up water. The exit force of water through the culvert will affect the lower area. Also imagine creating a retention pond at the very bottom of the watershed drain basin. We're talking the lowest point where, we're gonna put in a swimming pool a drainage basin in the lowest point where water from everywhere is going to go in there. The size of this project should require a form of an environmental impact statement. Using,
Let them finish, guys, come on.
using the IPCB, Illinois Pollution Control Board, using the IEPA, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, the IDOA, the Department of Agriculture, and the IDNR, Department of Natural Resources. These people need to come together and take a look at this plan. This is a solid basin. We're talking a solid basin. When they built the Galena territory, they went out there and they crossed the basin. In the years we used to be able to walk down there, nobody thought that that basin would wash out every dock and boat and push it across the river. Nobody ever thought that would happen. And they had plenty of engineering, but it did. It just washed it out. If you look at the other one, look at the construction that they put into that basin to try to control this water. And we're not talking about putting features in to control this water. We're talking about putting features in that are adverse to this project. So I would like to finally read a statement from the Sierra Club to us. I'm sure we all know about the Sierra Club. They've been to town several times. I've been on their buses and riding their buses, where we should put this, where we shouldn't put this, why this is good here, why that's good here. Their mission statement for the Sierra Club states, the purpose of the Sierra Club are to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of the earth, to participate and promote the responsible use of the earth's ecosystem and resources, to educate and enlist humanity, and to protect and restore the quality of natural and human environment. And their last statement is, and to use all lawful means to carry out these objectives. And I think that's where we are. I think we need to go to those boards and see what they have to say about this project before we go any further. This is big. You can't, that road has washed out. And so this is my map that I brought you to show you tonight, and it's got all the elevations on it. This is the other map. And so if you take this map and put it on this map, it pretty much fits perfectly. We're talking about the black line on this map, Blackjack Road, coming through the very base of it. And I'll leave this there if anybody wants to take a look at it. Here it is. If you look right down here in this blue area, this is chalk. If you take this blue area and take a napkin and wipe it away, you will see the very bottom basin of where I'm at and what I'm speaking to. This is your map from 1972 from the city of Galena, an elevation map. It's the only one that I could find that this project pretty much fits right on. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Anyone else speak?
My name is Mark Klausner. I'm with Eagle Ridge Resort and Spa. And we're not opposed to competition at all. In fact, we welcome all competition because it makes our game that much higher. So we welcome a chance to compete. And when I started out 3 years ago, we went through the entire resort and completely rebuilt all the buildings. And that's when my nose got bloody from day one. So when the aura of the newness wears off and you're confronted with these problems, the biggest problem we had was labor. I mean, nobody mentioned people. We've had to rearrange our restaurant.
gentleman speak, okay?
We had to rearrange our restaurant hours to accommodate labor. It was my intent to always hire a local craftsman. All the plumbers, electricians, carpenters, they all work for, we can't find anybody anymore. They're all busy and we can't find any labor. So when the newness of this thing wears off, and this gentleman understands, right, that we had major issues, liquor license, EPA, IPA, and then your nose gets bloody. So nothing goes according to plan, but labor is a problem. You talk to any restaurant guy down here on Main Street and they'll say, we can't find people. So we've had to adjust our hours and do certain things just to accommodate people. And Eagle Ridge offers one of the best employment packages, from vacations to medical, to wages. And we want to make sure that we're a premier company that's here to service our community. So things never go as planned. I don't have to tell you guys that, but we need people. We need workers. We need craftsmen. And I'm telling you right now, there's a severe shortage of local craftsmen. We had a chance to go out of Chicago with contractors, and I said, no, I want to keep the business local. I've lived in the territory for 23 years and served on the board. So we wanted the guys here to have the work and have the labor and the income. So it's not easy, but you guys got to think about where's the labor coming from? Because Galena / Joe Davies County is considered rural. And where are you going to bring all these workers in? Because we can't find any at Eagle Ridge. We employ 400 people in the peak season. So think about where the labor's coming from.
Where are they gonna live, Mark? Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? I'm just jumped ahead. That's okay, go ahead. State your name and that.
My name is Edward Shine. I'm at 1952 North Blackjack Road. And I want to thank the board for their time. So my parents bought the farm about 45 years ago. And I think we've been very good stewards of the land. There's been mention of erosion, which we're farther up north of the basin or higher up. And that's a tremendous issue that we continuously deal with. We've spent thousands of dollars of trying to reshape, make sure that there's less erosion to the fields. So being that, I just also want to say, you got to follow the money. $3.1 million. I don't know where I come from. That's a lot of money. So in my opinion, one would think that assurances have been given. Conflict of interest. Mr. Baranski would normally sit with you as a specialist. This is.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop. You're not gonna, hold on. You're not gonna take shots at people, whether it's Mr. Bransky or anybody sitting here. All right? You got it right.
I'm not taking shots at anyone there. He's been recused.
I don't care.
Well,
I'm not taking shots at the board or any member of the board. You got the right to speak, but you'll speak respectfully.
I am.
You won't speak, okay?
I am speaking respectively.
Then don't take shots at anybody.
I'm just saying there's a conflict of interest.
There is.
Okay.
He refused himself.
Well,
Don't make accusations of this board.
I'm not making accusations of this board.
You just said it.
He's not on the board.
All right, let's.
He's
Be
recused.
respectful.
Let him
or
talk.
you'll sit down.
He's recused himself. We can talk about him. He's not on the board right now. So that's just not enough. You should not appear, and you should not have appeared on a petition on behalf of the petition. His position as a member of the board can be compromised. Since he's been a board of the member for an extended period of time, he's participated in numerous privileged evaluations over the years. It is impossible factually and legally to separate him as bias from this. So thank you for your time.
I'm gonna, at the end of it, Jim, you can respond. All right?
It's good to, where's Mr. Sherman? I haven't seen you since you were 4 years old. My name's Kathleen. My name's Kathleen Webster. And we first moved to Galena about 50 years ago. And we lived here for 2 years and then we moved here permanently. I live at 2170 North Blackjack Road. My other address, which is the same place, is 411 Rive Street. We're directly below this development. We have about 2 acres on the creek. And our house is only about 100 years old. It's not old like most of the houses around here. I was the founding director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the first 10 years. And I hope you realize that hotel motel tax money can only be used for promotion. It can't be used for infrastructure. And your Convention and Visitors Bureau currently has a $1 million surplus that they don't know what to do with. They could use it for parking though. Our little corner down there is heaven on earth. We would come out on weekends and get out of the car and take a deep breath and say, it smells so good. And we look at the sky and we could see the stars. We can't see the stars as much anymore. And this is going to make it worse. We've got a lot of wildlife down there. We've got great gray owls and barred owls. We've got fireflies. We've got spring peepers. I don't know if you know what those are. Little frogs that peep in the spring. We've got gray tree frogs that are called Hyla versicolor. They're like chameleons. They change color. We get wood ducks and great blue herons and hawks and woodpeckers, so many varieties that we can't even tell how many there are. We get hummingbirds and turtles, and there's an incredible amount of wildflowers. Those are all going to be gone. Our houses with our 1 and 2 acre yards aren't going to be nice places to live anymore. All of that's going to be above us. And those houses, you can say what you want to about lights, but when I sit on my back porch and look up at the hillside and at the bench, all I'm going to see is lighted windows, big lighted picture windows looking down on our view. I've lived through 3 floods on Davis Creek. It will take out that detention basin the first time there's a big rainfall. It will just wipe it out. The first time I saw a flood, I went down there to move our Jeep Wagoneer, and it got moved before I could get to it. And those floods bring whole dead cattle down into our yards. I don't think they realize what it's going to be like. The detention basin won't do any good, and there'll be more runoff because of this. As far as Eli Parker goes, I think that this was a very handy excuse for this big development. That building can be saved if an effort had been made to find the right buyer and the right people. I don't think he'd be fixing that up, doing without the rest of this. I'm sorry, I'm very emotional approach tonight. Thank you.
My name is Carrie Geary, and I live at 1978 North Blackjack Road. And I would just like to reiterate a lot of the things that my neighbors have said. I have lived on our property for almost 14 years. And in the first year that we lived there, one of these rains came through, and I, have lived through this now at least 3 times where it has completely washed out our driveway. Our drive now is actually directly next to where the new drive is coming into this property. And the water runoff on that hill, it's amazing to see. It just streams down, and we used to have a huge culvert in our part of our driveway, and it washed it, 50 yards down the stream. And the amount of water that comes through there is amazing. And when you think about this property being built, it's going to compound that. And we have spent tons and tons of our own money replacing this constantly. We finally have it to where we think it's good. And now to think about something like this coming in is going to change it drastically. Speaking of also where the entryway is, when the first plan came out, we saw where the entryway was over on 4th Street. It was decided that that wasn't good, so it was moved basically into our backyard. If you look at the plan, our home is the one that sits directly on that drive. So when you talk about the traffic coming in and out of there, that will be by our house, constant, over and over and over, people coming in and out of there. I know that they said that they plan to use a shuttle, but like it's already been mentioned, some may, but I know that, again, people aren't going to want to carry their packages on that walking path, and they're also not going to want to hold them all downtown. You put them in your car. Having young children myself, you don't take public transportation because there's no car seats. My kids also wouldn't be able to walk that bike path, so they're going to drive. Anybody with children would. So I think the shuttle is a good idea. That's also going to be in and out and in and out and in and out all the time past my house, as well as all the cars. I just think that, again, it's going to change our whole way of life there. What drew us to that home was the property and having our children grow up somewhere where it's very quiet, very safe. They go outside and play. Our pets go outside. We don't worry about that ever. It would be a big concern with having that many people that close to our home, and strangers nonetheless, and a constant stream of them that close to our home. Thank you.
Well, I'm on the other side of town. I'm Darlene Perry, and I'm at 1974 North Blackjack. And Jim's right. When I go out of my one driveway, I just pray, because that's the only way you can get out of there without getting hit. You either pray or go really fast. I am opposed to their development for the following reasons. First of all, it doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan. In the plan, this area is not zoned commercial. Why do we have a plan if you're not going to follow it? Second is the traffic. Narrow, busy Blackjack Road. There's no good way to get in there. You just can't. We average about one traffic accident every summer weekend. Usually they're motorcycles. Few have been fatalities, but we have about one every weekend in the summer. And third, the best things about Galena are the unique history and its beautiful natural green rural spaces. Our signs say our green Galena. If we destroy and develop these areas and make it look like the other trashy, overly commercialized areas like Wisconsin Dells, we're not going to have a green Galena, are we? Every year, a group of people from the Eagle Nature Foundation do what is called a backyard bird count. And every year they count less and less and less birds, mostly because of the loss of habitat. With global warming looming over us, we need to preserve, not destroy our natural areas. There are many other reasons why this development's a bad idea. We talked about the water, also piping the water and sewage into the Galena River. This is fine unless something happens, which would be an absolute disaster. And as someone's mentioned, there's that one bridge, and if anything happens, any medical emergency, fire, or whatever, there's only that one bridge. And the house on the corner, the one way to get in 4th Street, that house has been hit in my memory like 7 or 8 times. I mean, it's just like a target. Again, because what we're talking about with the traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Eric Kennedy. I live on Irish Hollow Road. We've been here for 30 years. And I want to get you just the first-hand account of all you've heard about the intersection of 4th Street, Blackjack, and 20. I think, by the way, restoring the Marine Hospital is a great idea. Love it, everybody. But In fact, we had a chance to even look inside because a friend of ours who lived there. Really pretty cool building. They have vaulted brick ceilings and all kinds of heavy duty ironwork throughout stairs. And so forth. Wonderful. Let's restore it. Let's keep that building. But I had one of those when minutes count experiences. The 9/11 ambulance ride, and on the way to Mercy Hospital, my heart stopped. Now, if I had to wait in the ambulance to access 20, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. They were able to restart my heart in the ambulance, get me to Mercy, and they put in a pacemaker, and I'm good as new. But again, if there were a dump truck there from the construction, or a line of cars, as we're going to see, and we've all seen, and it's not just on Country Fair weekend, it's every weekend getting to that intersection. There's no other way out of it. How many people are going to get on the shuttle, come on, with your packages and so on and so forth? Where and when do we draw the line to preserve our historic treasured land and focus on the quality of life here that we all came here from? For those of us who live here, let's try to preserve that quality of life rather than sacrificing that for transient people and promise. We live across the street from the poor farm. About 5 years ago, and Jim was up here a little while ago, talked about getting together because one Saturday afternoon I went to town at 10 o'clock in the morning. When we got home, the poor farm was gone. And I wondered why there was a bulldozer hiding behind one of the buildings covered with a tarp. Well, it's sort of strange. Well, the idea was to get rid of the building where Friedrich Mills had a wonderful restaurant going and restored the building and all the rest of that stuff. But there were contentions about who's going to pay for the new driveway and everything. So they moved out. They left it. That kept the taxes up. So the two women that owned it, bulldozed. There was no one to talk to about it. It was just gone. So let's do what happened out there because we got people together, and Jim was up here before, talked about it. We went to the zoning board. 52 people came and said they were against this. The zoning board listened to the people, voted it down, and that's what I asked you to do tonight. Vote no. Thank you.
Hello, Charlotte Kennedy from the other hand. I live on Irish Hill Road. I came to Galena in the early 1980s when I moved an antique hand-hewed log cabin from Iowa and rebuilt it in Galena at 1022 4th Street, which is across the street from the brewery, and it's right on the curve that turns into Blackjack Road. I could have moved to the territory, but I believe in the historic preservation of Galena, going back to the Civil War and Grant's big influence. And I worked in my prairie dress many times to enhance that program. That's why my neighbors also moved here. Since we already have territory housing available,
This project adds to the chaos, the concerns, the traffic, the noise, light pollution, and this close to town, it's disturbing. This log cabin was sold a few years ago, being on the market less than a month. So historic housing is still a viable market. And our home now on Irish Hollow, just off of Blackjack, will be seeing more increased transient traffic, and the only route to Route 20 will be impacted as well. Therefore, I join my neighbors and friends in not supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Zaire, and I live at 1102 South 3rd Street, next door to Wendy. And I just appreciate the fact that she could represent the neighbors in such an articulate way. And it's getting late, and everybody's has given their opinions. I really can't add much more to that, except that light is light is light, and our hillside that we see is when the neighbors attack will be lit with little cabins. Not only that, it also will be seen from everywhere. I mean, people who aren't here don't know that it'll be seen from Green, and they go to a lot of the attention to address those concerns. But again, is light, and so I just encourage you to not support this project. And that's right, just that one more thing, and that's sure everybody here would love to see the Marine Hospital restored. But I'm not quite sure how that morphed into such a huge resort. So I just ask you to not please. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Missy Vogel, 1477 South Rocky Hill Road in Galena. I support all of the concerns voiced by my neighbors and friends speaking tonight in regards to the Marine Hospital project. I have many concerns, however, I'm going to zero in on traffic and safety. There are three main arteries leading to Galena from the outer limits of Joe Davis County. There's Stagecoach Trail, Route 20, and Blackjack Road. Traffic from Blackjack Road onto Route 20 during tourist season is already difficult at best. Oftentimes, stop traffic on Blackjack Road is at the mercy of a kind-hearted traveler backed up on Route 20 to let them in. There has been mention of a shuttle from the Marine Hospital grounds to downtown Galena. However, most people do not care to shuttle. They want their car with them to continue on to other places, hold their pets, their strollers, their packages, and for convenience. This additional traffic presents a serious problem not only for residents and tourists, but also very importantly for emergency vehicles that must be taken into consideration. We've already had a hospital built without a proper entrance, and here we are years later without a proper entrance, having experienced many accidents. Hopefully, we're not looking at another similar situation in the making. Any truck or shuttle traffic cannot help but cross over into the oncoming opposite lane of traffic when turning at the intersection of 4th Street and Route 20, as well as the proposed entrance exit to the Marine Hospital project on Blackjack Road. Please keep in mind there is a definite blind spot when approaching the Marine Hospital project proposed entrance exit from the east. I know it was mentioned that a ride was taken there by engineers and that there was no such blind spot. However, in a regular SUV, there's a large blind spot. You cannot see what's coming up ahead of you. The average speed traveled on Blackjack Road is 40 miles per hour and not enough time to react to incoming and outgoing traffic at a blind spot. I ask that you take this into consideration when making your decision regarding the zone and proposed plans of the Marine Hospital. And I hope you decide against it.
Thank you.
Adam Johnson, 211 4th Street. I'm gonna go through some of the zoning aspects and some of the comprehensive plan aspects that I think are pertinent to this. Going through the application, I think the first item I'd like to discuss is the actual zoning, the present zoning. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, the present zoning, I believe, is correct for the property now. CSR and land and limited agriculture are both based on areas that are not intended to be covered by city sewers and so both of all of this property has been looked at and according to the comprehensive plan, this wasn't an area that the city was going to extend sewer to. So I think to say that we should be worried about somebody overbuilding on this limited agricultural site up to 50%, it's kind of disingenuous when he's done before. When we're going on further to suggest a zoning classification that the applicant is then desiring to have larger FAR than is allowed. The reasons for the PUD listed on page 5 of the application, that the PUD will resolve access to the site of the Marine Hospital. I believe that will only resolve access to the site for this required use. Right now, there is access to the site, and the site is actually has access, can be used for its current use. To think that a 15,000 square foot building in ag is somehow out of place, I think is misplaced thinking. As in terms of the Marine Hospital, again, I spoke with Jim myself, and he assured me that the Marine Hospital is in very good health, very good condition. It's not in any significant structural decline. And so this is not a matter of we need to do this now to save the Marine Hospital. Again, the applicant states that the property will be within walking distance and that they'll be using these shuttles to shuttle people around. I don't think that's going to work. That's not going to help. Like everybody else has stated about the traffic problems. And the applicant saying that there will be sewer and water available on site, that's because he's providing it, not because the city is intending to provide it there. And then we get on to deviation from the development standards, where he talks about, again, using a shuttle bus, I'm sorry, deviation from the development standards. I'm not sure what page 6 is really saying, but when we talk about phasing this, again, I think what hasn't been really talked about, again, is the amazing amount of infrastructural development that will be required by this. And to provide the sewer for the initial phase, we have to provide the sewer connection. And once you do that and you develop these roads, you have this enormous infrastructure cost already involved. So we know that the initial phase is not going to support that cost. So we know that these costs will have to be borne by taking the project to the full fruition of what's presented here. So that they provide this phasing schedule really doesn't affect what's going to happen in the long run. We know that they're going to develop this to the total fruition. I appreciate you bearing with me. So when we get to the comprehensive plan and the support of the comprehensive plan and whether this application will conform to that. Again, on page 7, the applicant provides a number of the big vision statements, but I think they pretty much misinterpret all of them. So when we talk about diversifying the economy, we're not talking about creating the same jobs we have. We're not talking about creating more tourist industry. We're talking about trying to diversify and create a bigger economic platform for this town to move forward with. If we simply just rely on tourism, we're not going to grow the way we want. And that's not what the comprehensive plan is trying to do. It says we're going to improve the business environment for tourism by retaining our existing businesses, not by creating a bunch of economic competition with them, not by taking away all their employees. We don't have the employees for these people to build the largest lodging facility in the city. This is not retaining existing businesses. This is being competitive to them. And so the vision statement goes on to say, we're supposed to be attracting new clean businesses with good paying jobs. And again, these are the same jobs we got, the same employees we're all going to be fighting over, and the same industry. And then it goes on to say, we have to promote the quality of experience and heritage, including the Galena and Mississippi rivers. So that's the vision statement. We're supposed to be creating new, better paying jobs and protecting our environment. The next statement they say is the growth statement. And it says the city of Galena will strive to preserve its small town image by managing physical growth with sound planning and zoning. So to do sound planning and zoning, we've got a comprehensive plan and we have a direction of where we want that growth to go. And we've been very specific about it. And that goes on to say we want to preserve the historic district and make efficient, attractive development of the land and be proactive in what we annex. So we laid all that out in the comprehensive plan. And this is not conforming to that. Go on to further on into the, and that's about all they talk about the comprehensive plan in the application. Beth went through some other points of the comprehensive plan, but they touched very lightly on some very peripheral type of goals and objectives. And I'll get on into that a little bit later, but I want to go through the rest of their presentation, their application. So that short, brief statement on the comprehensive plan. And then we get on to why are we doing planned commercial? I don't know why we're doing planned commercial, because everything they want to do is either a special use or something, you know, the outdoor entertainment isn't even allowed by special use in kind of commercial. So here's somebody who wants to work with us, come with us, who wants to be open, but he doesn't want to use a special use for swimming pool, outdoor entertainment. He wants the outdoor seating to exceed 15%. Again, putting them in major competition to all the other downtown restaurants that are limited now by your outdoor seating ordinance. So they want to blow that away, so they're bigger competition. So if you look at what they're asking for, again, they're not asking to be part of the community. They're not asking to say, let us do this and see how it works. They want this stuff by right, not by special use. And I don't understand, if you're coming to the city and you want all this stuff, why can't we have special use hearings and special use permits for the things that are required in the zoning district that they're asking for? They're the ones asking for it. So get further into the application. I'm just picking at a few things here. But when we get to page 19, and they talk about how they're going to match all the requirements of the zoning requirements and get the preservation of natural conditions. And they say nice things, but basically they're saying the tree removal will depend on the construction. And then the natural drainage ways will be maintained to the degree possible. So again, we don't have any promises on what they're doing there. They're not making specific statements about we're going to make sure things are right. They are making vague statements. And then just again to reiterate on the emergency vehicle access. I talked to some people and we even thought that we'd have to consider a second fire station on the east side if you've got this kind of use. I did a lot of zoning applications for Orlando Valenti at the power station, the old power station. And one of the main objections always at zoning was there was a train track there, and if there was an emergency at the power plant, they wouldn't be able to get to the power plant to take care of that emergency. And I think that's a really good point that has to be investigated. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I interpret the comprehensive plan. So picture the site from Jail Hill Inn, Matt Carroll sent me. If you drive down the street now, you can see that whole white hillside. You can see the trees are lost to leaves. You can see the whole hillside is white. So right now you can see that whole thing. So just going through the mission statements, the vision statements. Again, number one, we should have a cohesive community here. We should be able to work together. So when somebody comes with an application for something that they want in the city, they should work with us. They should look at our plans. They should look at our zoning and say, this requires a special use. I'm perfectly good with a special use. Aren't you? Why should we be looking at zoning districts that they don't even want to abide by? Second vision's topic, local economy. Again, diversify economy, retain existing businesses, don't compete with them. Don't take all the employees. Don't take other customers. We want new, clean businesses with good paying jobs. That's what we're willing to give up for. That's the things we're willing to give up for. We're not gonna give all this up just to have a bunch of jobs that we already got for employees that we don't have enough of. Growth, preserve, manage physical growth with sound planning. Put your infill development where the infill development is supposed to be. Put your annexations where we've already talked about. That's not a hard thing to do. Physical environment, we want to protect our historical architecture character and protect our natural resources. That's number 4. So there's not an economic aspect of that. We want to protect these resources. There's not an economic aspect of, well, maybe we'll protect them or maybe we won't. These are natural resources that we've already set out in our comprehensive plan to be protected. And then social issues. One of our goals is to provide quality recreational facilities. And that's what this property is already slated to become. So, going specifically into your development, into your goals, into your objections. Economic development, design and control incentive packages. Number 1 goal, design and incentive packages to help preserve the landscape and vistas in and around the city of Galena. That's the number 1 goal for development. We want to preserve these vistas. We want to preserve this landscape. That's why we've set up a comprehensive plan and told people where we want to develop. We want to protect these views and landscape, view sheds, and we want, number 2, we want to create a diverse economy that we can all thrive on. We're losing our industries. We lost micro switch. We don't need to be building more hotels. Go on to further a lot of the economic or the comprehensive plan sections didn't necessarily stand out for me on this. But 10.6 again, natural resources. Protect, number 1 goal, protect and preserve the natural beauty in and around the city of Galena. Number 2 goal, preserve the natural beauty and view sheds around the eastern entrance to the community. So these are all goals that we've already set out. Goal number 5, preserve and protect the Galena River from further degradation. We don't want to be creating further runoff, taking valuable land out of natural resources and creating runoff, especially in this area, like we've already talked about. Directing growth. We want to direct the growth to the western side of the edge of the city. We all know this. Protect and maintain the rural character of the community. All these goals are in opposition to what they're doing here because we're not protecting the natural resources. We're not protecting the rural character. We're not protecting the views, the view sheds, the vistas that all these properties depend on. It was very interesting to have the applicant state what about the development of the jailhouse and Ulysses Suites and many of our Airbnbs reflect the trend to a more upscale business. Well, I did these Ulysses Suites. We didn't have to buy 80 acres and build a hotel and 130 cottages to make that work. She did that just on that property. She didn't have to buy a bunch. She didn't have to build a hotel. Matt Carroll at Galena, he totally renovated that building. It's one of the finest inns in the world. He didn't have to build an extra shed. He didn't have to build any extra cottages. He didn't need any more development. To say that we need this development to restore the Marine Hospital is totally off the mark. So the history. Here. So in 1993, the zoning board turned down an application to turn the Marine Hospital into a small inn and put 11 cabins on the site. That was presented by John Cox. 3 local people, I guess, were involved in that. It got turned down. And then they came out with a comprehensive plan. Very tall. The comprehensive plan in 1993. And if you see this area down here, it's slated as conservation. That's not what they call it. So they started out turning down a small inn on 11 acres. And then they placed it in conservation in the comprehensive plan. And when they came back and they looked at this property again, land use area, landscaping, woodland. That's what that was when they looked at it for the comprehensive plan. Proposed land use area. It's now parks and recs and limited agriculture. That's what they decided to do. So comprehensive plan went from conservation area to actually determining a future use, parks and recs. It's on the plan, proposed use. Again, comprehensive plan, annexation, areas for proposed annexation. Again, all of these pieces of property that are proposed for annexation will be served on city sewer. They're infill on the east side to complete the city land, but we're not planning on annexing this property that we talked about. It's not in the comprehensive plan. It wasn't planned for. Finally, this is growth now. Which again, areas in infill within the existing east side, so that we can compactly and develop the rest of the east side. But it's not planned. There's no plan for this property to be annexed or to be developed. It's already proposed to be parks and rec. All of this yellow should get about a lot of property for what they spent on this property here that's not supposed to be developed. Go over here, anywhere. All of this yellow. What we wanted was people to come to the east, to the west side, get off the 4-lane at the west side, and come through the development on the west side. What we wanted was the east side to become that natural vista, that natural historic landscape that we all know. And so developing this area down here is only going to cause major problems with traffic, development we didn't plan, and it's going to ruin a view. Now, I moved here in '70. We lived up on High Street, and I grew up at the high school stairs, and that was all landscape. It's all a beautiful countryside. You get to look at from up there. And if you develop this property, you're gonna lose that character. You're gonna lose that defining characteristic that we've planned to keep, that we've protected, that we've already made decisions about in very straightforward, comprehensive ways. And so I think that you need to provide a negative finding of fact to the city council on this. And I myself feel very sad about the opportunity to have a developer come to Galena and be totally misdirected to where we don't want the vote to happen. And I hope in the future that if you provide the proper motivation, that the city in the future will send developers who have the ability to do this kind of thing to where we want it. We don't want 400 people driving out on Blackjack. We wanted 400 people on the west side where we have traffic lights and turning lanes and lots of views. And we're not bugging all these people who are very happy on the east side houses where we all expected to live without this commercial zone. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Hanna. I live at 1107 4th Street, immediately adjacent to the proposed development. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm opposed to the development, and I concur with reasons others have given here tonight regarding the impacts on our neighborhood and the community, and that the proposed development is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I just want to raise a few specific issues related to the zoning code. The proposal goes into detail around commercial district standards, but before considering that, the first question is whether it is even appropriate to amend the zoning map to rezone the properties to commercial. Information in the zoning request does not demonstrate conformance with the rezoning criteria in 154-920. I'll just run through a few of the criteria. Whether there's been a change in the character of the area. The character of our neighborhood has been the same for decades. Whether the proposed zoning is compatible with the surrounding area. Rezoning to create a large commercial resort is incompatible with the surrounding area. Our historic residential neighborhood surrounding agricultural lands, natural values, and watershed. Whether there may be adverse impacts to the capacity or safety of the rail network or environment. The development would contribute to dangerous traffic patterns and congestion that others have spoke of. The development would also generate numerous environmental impacts to steep slopes, drainage ways, woodlands, wildlife, noise and light pollution, and so on. Whether the proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Others have spoken to that, but in particular, the land use map is the product of much deliberation by the planning commission and the community, and does not identify the areas of development. The zoning map should not be changed simply for the benefit of an individual or a group of individuals. It must serve as the public interest and the good of the community. Whether adequate public facilities and services are available. Public services and facilities are defined in section 154-406, include all government facilities, emergency services, and so on. The applicant and the city indicate the proposed resort would be served by city sewer and water, but there's no analysis of how this relates to current and future maintenance and operation issues for the city. There's no provision for any other public services or facilities, but if the resort is developed, there will be additional burdens placed on emergency services and public street network. Whether there's a need in the community for the proposal. The community did not identify a need for this development, as we heard tonight, and there's substantial opposition. We've also heard about money and jobs. Money and jobs are important, but you can't just wave the money and jobs ban without articulating a clear vision of how that will actually specifically provide additional benefit to the community and mitigate the specific impacts created by development. Overall, The proposed zoning amendment from limited agriculture to commercial would be contrary to the general welfare of the community. It would be contrary to the established land use pattern. It would create an isolated, unrelated district. It would be inconsistent with existing uses. It would contribute to dangerous traffic patterns and congestion. It would adversely influence the living conditions in the vicinity. It would adversely affect property values in the vicinity. It would not combat economic segregation. And it would not comply with the city's land use map. So from the start, the zoning change from limited agriculture to commercial should not be permitted. There's really no need to further address the details of the application. Section 154.913 indicates that we have to consider preliminary development plan for a fee. The purpose of this stage is to answer this question. Should this use with this specific intensity density designed in this particular manner be constructed on the site? If you review the application in detail, it is clear that the answer to this question is no. For instance, does it conform to the city's land use map? Traffic problems are not identified in the rest. Natural resource features are not accurately measured or delineated in the proposal, nor are they adequately protected. The proposal asserts that it's compatible with the surrounding area, and it is not. The proposal requests outdoor commercial entertainment by right, but ignores that this use is not supposed to be visible from residentially zoned properties, and it requires a higher buffer standard than what is proposed. It misrepresents the amount of open space by equating open space with landscape surface ratio. We've heard about that already tonight. It claims to be harmonious with topography when it cuts roads and buildings into steep slopes and on soils with severe limitations for roads and buildings. Some sewer infrastructure would be excavated more than 30 feet deep. It dams and diverts Davis Creek and puts a sewer lift station immediately adjacent to the Galena River in the floodplain. I could go on, but it's clear that this use with this particular design described in the application is not in conformance with the zoning code, and therefore should not be constructed. I'm gonna skip a whole bunch because it's already been talked about tonight, but as a non-expert reading through the zoning ordinance, I also have some questions about procedural aspects of the review of the proposal. I understand, regardless of my questions, the fact that we are now in a hearing on this application means that the zoning administrator has determined that the procedures required prior to the hearing are complete, that sufficient information has been provided by the applicant to schedule the application for a hearing, and that the matter is ready for the zoning board to vote tonight. I want to emphasize, I'm not trying to nitpick or overly focus on the process. I recognize that the zoning ordinance should provide flexibility and discretion by the city to address unique circumstances and find good solutions. But getting to the right outcomes is important, and the procedures and details help support getting to the right outcome. My point is to emphasize that this proposed development represents an enormous change for the city with enormous impacts to many. And there are so many ways that it's inconsistent with both the intent and the letter of the zoning ordinance that it's clear that the right outcome is to deny the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Newton. I live at 1203 3rd Street. I also own another historic building right next door. Neighbors with the Zares, the Hortons, Wendy Clark. I think everything's been said tonight, but I do want to say one thing since I'm right adjacent to the proposed property. And that is, I think this is far too aggressive. A proposal, and I really urge the committee to vote against it. And for that, thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Krista Ginger, and I live at 418 Harrison Street in Galena. I'm co-chair of the Galena Preservation Advocacy Organization, and we are testifying this evening on 3 specific concerns regarding the Marine Hospital project. 1 is the integrity of the historic building. 2, the integrity of the historic nearby historic neighborhood, and the integrity of historic Galena. First, we fully support someone rehabilitating our historic marine hospital with proper historic preservation commission oversight and using our local preservation standards. However, we seriously question whether changing the zoning to new commercial for a massive resort in an area twice the size of downtown Galena honors and protects the integrity of this very important building. Our organization has been meeting with the city for over 3 years discussing historic preservation concerns surrounding our many historic buildings, including our marine hospital. Most of our key historic buildings are in the historic district and follow the city's historic preservation ordinances. That has not been the case with the marine hospital, as that is not in our historic district, nor is it officially labeled landmarked. As you know, local landmarking tool is the only tool that protects the actual building from being torn down in the future without a hearing. It is the ultimate protection. The city should have landmarked the marine hospital as outlined when the historic boundaries were changed in 2013, but it did not happen. We have asked the new owner through his architect to locally landmark this building, and we heard today that they filed the application paperwork this afternoon. For that, we are grateful. However, this application still needs to go through the HPC and City Council for approval. We are looking forward to the building being locally landmarked. We certainly do not want a repeat of our poor farm. 2, Galena has had many successful historic preservation projects, and we believe that historic preservation and progress can happen simultaneously and be successful. The successful projects that have had positive impacts to the community and tourism have done so without negatively impacting the surrounding neighborhoods, infrastructures, or Galena's overall historic presence. Jail Hill Inn is a great example of this. However, we are very concerned that won't be the case with the Marine Hospital project as currently outlined. We hope that you consider the historic neighborhood and historic homes and the negative effects of having a massive resort next door to them. It will change the historic character of their neighborhood forever. 3, Galena's comprehensive plan in section 10.1 on economic development states goal number 1 is to develop a package of design controls and incentives that help preserve the landscape and vistas in and around the city of Galena, while at the same time helping the city to be competitive and attracting new business and industry. National Park Service guidelines and the city of Galena especially reference protecting the historic view of the property for right-of-way or public view. This is also emphasized in section 10.6 of the comprehensive plan, as it adds the need for, quote, preservation of the natural beauty and view sheds along the eastern entrance to our community. Section 11.3 states commercial land uses include areas where retail goods are bought and sold and services are provided. Over the next 20+ years, the city desires new commercial uses to locate primarily along the existing Highway 20 corridor. The majority of these areas are located at the northwestern edge of the city. See map number 15, where it clearly shows the commercial expansion for the city are on the west side and not in residential and light agricultural areas. The West Galena viewshed has not changed in much of over 150 years, with the exception of nature taking its course. This viewshed should not change if someone wants to build many box hotels on stilts and a large event center and who knows what else, all on a pristine hillside that will be seen from all over West Galena, including my home, properties on Prospect and Seminary Hill. We ask that the zoning board consider our concerns in making this momentous decision that could change the historic presence of Galena forever. As former preservationist, Mayor Frank Einsweiler once profoundly stated, Galena's future is in the past. His words are still true today. Thank you.
Someone left this on my porch, my wife and I got back home from Minnesota.
Right, state your name and address.
Oh, Ronald Smith, 712 Park Avenue, Galena, Illinois.
Thank you.
So anyhow, I know some of you weren't home, I drove around, stuck in your door there at all. But I'd just like to make a summary of it. I agree with all the comments that have just been made. We're looking at it as 120 guest houses. And then we're looking at a 300-person event center, 50,000 square feet, which is bigger than Galena High School. Restaurant, cafe, winery, pool, spa, and then on-site parking of 400 vehicles. My main concern is, I'm not going to talk about this here anymore, is the Highway 20 thing. We know about it, what can happen there. And someone brought up about the Highway 20, well, 65 is when they put the bypass in, and they were going to, or put the 4-lane, they were going to put the bypass on Galena, and that didn't happen. It should have happened. And then I brought up, I was on the county board when the poorhouse was brought to us about turning that into a, could be more of a musical thing and everything else, and we looked at the roadways and everything else, and decided that that wasn't the action. But my main concern is access, and with that many, coming there. And it won't be competition for current businesses too. I know. So I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
You guys are doing a great job. My name is Debbie Cole-Zaka. I live at 422 South Pirate Dog Road. We own a plumbing company in Chicago. We've done a lot of construction. There's going to be things that are going to be disturbed. We all know that. As a former director with the Garden Clubs of Illinois, I should be excited about a 4-acre garden. I'm not really excited about it. I'm concerned about how this project does not fit in the land use map or the comprehensive plan. I was impressed when I read it. Galena put a lot of work into things, and I don't think that this plan meets our needs. And we're opposed to it. And I hope you can decline your request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joy Wallace. I live at 696 Reeve Street, which is Blackjack, and I'm one of the last houses leaving town. This area of Blackjack is what I call the Galena Speedway. This is beyond where the intersection is on 20 and 4. It's right where everyone's going out. Everyone's going 65 miles per hour in and 65 miles per hour out. Logging trucks, the sheriff, everybody. It's a dangerous spot. So where they plan to put this entrance, since they pushed it out of Park Street, because no one wanted it there, Park Avenue Street, and they didn't want it on 4th. So hey, let's stick it right in those guys' backyards. My house is one of the oldest houses in Galena. It's the first dormitory in. It's oldest older than the Marine Hospital. If that's what we're talking about here. It's gonna change everything. Okay, we get my spot here. You notice they don't even talk about the entrance. They gloss over real quick, don't they? They don't want to bring that up, do they? They wouldn't like that. They didn't do anything about that entrance. Joke. The architect plans to route the entrance and an angle back towards the city and build it right behind the Geary's house, my house, the Webster's house. They have a choice they are taking, and they're going to destroy our properties as we know them. Over 1,000 vehicles will be zooming back and forth at every hour of the day. In the middle of the night, there's going to be so many drunk people driving from those weddings down those roads. Hold on a second here. Okay, so yeah, you guys don't want it on Park Avenue, you don't want it for, yeah, kick it down on us. Nice and dandy. I bet you guys would like it in your backyard, would you? Okay, when I met with the architect, I pleaded him to at least move the road away from our houses because they got plenty of room down there. And I also pointed out his office window that would he like it if a road was going up his backyard and hill? And he said no. He didn't like it. He wouldn't like it in his backyard. He even said it to me. It's all dandy if it's down the road in someone else's backyard. Huh? Yeah, hold on, I'm not done yet. You're gonna have to probably put traffic lights in on 4th and 20, and that's gonna be backed up because you got the other traffic lights on Main Street. It's gonna be an absolute shit show. Yeah, if I question if this is a reckless addition to a residential neighborhood. How many houses are on the east side of the river? Maybe like 150? And then we're gonna add 130 more cabins at the giant convention center, a winery, a restaurant. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. This is gonna be the sore thumb on everyone's property on our side of the street, on the side of the neighborhood. 10-minute walking distance, yeah, through our yards, late night partiers, we making our way back from the bar, stop at obnoxious. I can't wait. Resort moves in, buys the Marine Hospital, and just to sugarcoat it, and then it gets to change our lives. Would we be doing this if it wasn't for the Marine Hospital? Would you be leaving, letting them do this? I doubt it. This is just a little carrot. Bunch of bull. Lighting designer, yeah, because I know you're gonna be seeing it from everywhere. I mean, come on, it's gonna be the biggest sore thumb around. Noise, the cabins are on the edges of the property. You know, so they're gonna be looking down at all of us. We're gonna be hearing all the late night partying after the weddings, to the wee of the night. You know, everyone in the community was pretty relieved that the Horseshoe Bluff didn't get developed into condominiums. I hear all the time how great that they didn't do that. Right, I think this is an absolutely ridiculous idea. And you wouldn't want it in your own backyard, would you? Done.
I am not in favor of the rezoning of this acreage. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. I am not in support of I am not in favor of the rezoning of this acreage. I recognize that tourism is a vital part of the economic health of Galena. But there is another part that must be considered. And that is the 3,500 people who make Galena their home. We live here 365 days a year, not 3. We represent the term stability of Galena. During the first months of the pandemic, it was the local residents that kept these businesses alive, not tourists. We pay taxes, we buy real estate, we hold mortgages and accounts in our local banks. Our children attend Galena schools. We support our local businesses. We take our pets to local vets and we visit local doctors. We hire contractors, electricians, landscapers, and countless other household employees. We are involved in local churches and arts organizations. And we are devoted to this town because we love it. We love its history and we respect its respect for historical preservation. We love the way that green and open spaces have been protected. We love the size and the aesthetic of it. And we elected you to represent us. We already avoid downtown almost half of the year due to overcrowding of tourists. Please, I implore you, do not permit this project to move forward. Galena will never be the same, and there will be no going back. Thank you.
Anyone else speaking for the board? Okay, if not, oh.
Hi, my name is Michelle Corona. I live at 312 Elm Street. I've only been here 6 years. This community has supported me in my darkest days. I think we need to support these people that planted roots here, their families have been here for decades. I moved here hoping to plant roots here. We have to support our people, not the people that are wanting to make money off of our land. We have to take care of each other. We have to have each other. Please, let's not do this. Let's don't do this to Galena. Thanks.
Just a few points. We have been in contact with the fire chief, Conley, and with Eric Hakel, the police chief, to talk about life safety issues. And specifically with the fire chief, we will be reaching out to EMS as well. The thing you need to understand, of course, the zoning board is a quasi judicial board, which means that you have to make an interpretation of the ordinance with respect to how we go argue our case, or how the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which, by the way, got to two final points on it, was last updated in 1993. So there have been many things that have happened in this.
2013.
2003. So it is
2013.
2003. 2003, right? Was the last time it was updated. And there are a lot of things that happened since that time, bike trails, et cetera. And the facilities plan for where water and sewer can be provided has been updated and expanded into the southern part of the city. So I'm just saying that those things there have been changes since 2003. And I think the arguments that we made, that what we have done is consistent with the growth pattern, I think is correct. I don't know, Andy, if you wanted to address anything about drainage, ponds, pipes under the river. Any comments about that?
Joe, just you can speak in rebuttal here. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, he can't answer the question. He's not on my team. Well,
All right, guys.
yeah, no, he's my consultant. So Andy, this is Andy Reeder. He's from Paragraph. He's designing the water and sewer system. Creating a sewer line under the river is done a lot. It's just not a problem. So I don't know. I mean, I would just make the case that I believe that this is a very well thought out project. And I think that we would be missing a huge opportunity to let this slip. And I think we have made the argument that it is not only consistent with the comprehensive plan, but it is consistent with the zoning ordinance, which is what you need to decide.
Yeah. Yeah. For who? Because there is no specific reason.
Wendy Clark will speak.
Technically, people in opposition could speak again who spoke previously, but we don't want to go through everybody speaking again. So if there's somebody that wants to address what Jim just did, that's fine. Wendy, that's fine.
Wendy?
What about the other part of it? But just with address what you discuss.
I just changed the bill, yes. So, and this will be very brief, because he's very brief as well. I appreciate that he said he was talking to EMS and fire services, but that doesn't actually address how we resolve those problems. Talking to them is a good thing, but we still don't know. And as I said before, DOT identified the fact that they really have no mitigation for some of these traffic concerns because of the historic districts, topography, geology, et cetera. So some of these things are just problems that you can't throw money at and fix. They're just there. Also, in terms of the fact that the comprehensive plan was completed in 2003, there are a number of things that have changed, but there's nothing substantive that would cause us to rethink the plan use map in that area. It's still the kind of neighborhood and residential and rural area that it was when that plan was developed. So nothing in that particular area that we're talking about really compels a decision to change the zoning to accommodate some different type of use or different thing that's happening there. That just isn't a thing right there. Water and sewer can be provided to the property. I understand that the wastewater treatment plant has moved and infrastructure has changed. But that doesn't mean that the city has envisioned that it should provide a whole bunch more infrastructure that it needs to keep track of and maintain. Sewer under the river, I understand that that is done very commonly, but I think that's actually one of the least of the concerns. Again, I defer to the geologic maps and the concerns about limestone parks and how unstable and unpredictable it is. And what Dave mentioned about how deep some of those pipes and infrastructure need to be, which means they're going to be really difficult and expensive to access when something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong with plumbing and sewage. I mean, it just does. It's how it works. And so something will inevitably go wrong, and it will be hard to detect and hard to access and so on. So those are just kind of the specific points that Jim made, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak about them.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add, Jim, on that?
I have to answer those questions, or, you know, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Just specifically those?
Yeah, what she's talking about. Right. So now, we close the public hearing, I'm getting a motion to do so.
Motion to close.
The motion to close, a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same here. Okay. Reminder. Basically, the board, our job is.
We should just note that Jim Baranski and Bill Nyro have actually left the room. Two board members who recused themselves are now out of the room.
Our job here is to determine whether or not the request is compatible with the criteria of the zoning ordinance. Or if you're involved in it at all. Based on the fact that that's our job. So I will entertain a motion on the finding of fact. So
I'll make the motion to approve, in fact, with the, change the, preliminary plan.
Okay, got a motion to approve.
Just for clarification, motion we send a positive recommendation to the city council.
Yeah.
And try to put your mics down, so your mics speak out. Okay, I make the motion to approve the finding of fact to approve the preliminary plans and the PUD and send it on to the city government.
Yeah, there's been a motion to send a positive recommendation to the city council.
There's a second. Second. A second. You just read the criteria, Joe.
Well, it's open for discussion at this point, and what you should do is go through all of the criteria on the zoning request and the PUD and discuss each one of those, and then ultimately make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take 16. Right.
So I didn't read each one. All right, so the first amendment is whether the existing text for zoning designation was in error at the time of adoption. And the second one was,
Well, what you should do is then discuss that issue, whether it was or it wasn't. Right. And people who speak on either side of it, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't know if it was in here. That.
second one is whether there has been a change of the character in the area or throughout the city due to
to installation of public facilities or zoning changes, new growth trends, development transition, etc.
I guess in that instance, though, in that section of town, there's been absolutely no change, absolutely no change, unfortunately.
Well, we
Why
put
is
in.
it on, why is it on orange?
Okay, there's no comment from the audience. The board's gonna discuss this. If there's any unwanted comments from the audience, you will be removed immediately.
I would like to be able to hear you.
And move closer. We're doing the best we can.
But there has been changes, like the new sewer treatment plant put in, so there have been changes that make it easier for that, in that area now. There's,
Three, whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with the surrounding area and defining characteristics of the proposed zoning district, or whether there may be adverse impacts on capacity or safety of a portion of the street network influenced by rezoning, pressure problems or environmental impacts that the new zoning may generate, such as excessive stormwater runoff, water, air, and noise pollution, something like that way.
there's a lot of talk about it. Besides, you know, there's any parking problems. The roof is the other. Except for stormwater off of it, that's the block for them. Noise and air pollution. I've sat up here for a number of years, I sat on the city council before that. I've heard a lot of people come in and, you know, talk about, well, what if, or what's gonna happen in my neighborhood when somebody wants to do something, and it never happens. You know, we've had people go in and fix up buildings and let neighbors kind of play about it, but it never was problem. So there's nothing there to say that this isn't gonna be compatible with surrounding area.
You guys can remove me, but this is 1,000 people extra every weekend to say, you know what to do. Give me a break.
Yeah, this
You guys
is
have never
jealous.
seen
You guys
this
are
before.
ruining our freaking neighborhood.
You've never
Goodbye.
seen
This is not your neighborhood. Chump.
Well, if we just look at where it's my years, but okay. It would just be nice to know what you're saying.
Number 4, whether the proposal is in conformance with and adherence of implementation of the goals and the policies of the comprehensive plan, other adopted plans or policies and intents, and the requirements of this code and other city regulations and guidelines.
And I believe it is in conformance with the implementation. Granted, it's been, what, almost 20 years since they've redone the comprehensive plan. Yeah, we don't account for the last time they did it. You know, so things have changed, and yeah, originally they wanted everything to be out west, but we annexed things in the east side of Galena in the last couple of years. So
Number 5, whether adequate public facilities and services are available or will be made available concurrent with the projected impacts of the development proposed zone.
And I believe just by what they presented with the different facilities out there over to the public, it will be. So
Number 6, whether there is an adequate supply of land available in the subject area and the surrounding community to accommodate the zoning and community needs.
I believe that is also, I mean, plenty of acreage up there for this to be developed. There's plenty of, shouldn't be an issue.
Number 7, whether there is a need in the community for the proposal and whether there will be benefits derived by the community or area by the proposed rezone.
Not to be depending on where you're sitting at tonight, but I think there is a need to bring people into this town. That's what's pretty much supported this town is tourism. And I've been here 61 years. And that's the biggest industry we've ever had. And somebody mentioned Frank Einswaller. Well, that was Frank Einswaller's biggest goal, bring tourism into Galena. And that's what built this town, because it wasn't built on anything else. I think it is important that we continue to do that because that's the industry we chose.
The next one, you need to then go through on the end, the 7 criteria.
So, planned unit development zoning should be used only when long-term community benefits, which may be achieved through high-quality plan development, will be derived. Specific benefits that would support the PDU zoning include, but are not limited to, number 1, more efficient infrastructure. Do we need to address each?
You should address each one.
I believe what they presented, that there will be more efficient infrastructure. New sewer lines, new roads and stuff that are going to go in there. It should be.
Number 2, reduce traffic demands.
I don't think that's, their traffic is gonna go up, some, but we don't know how bad it's gonna go up.
But my point or my thought on that is I go out to Chestnut and ski there on a regular basis. So all winter, we've got hundreds and hundreds of people going out blackjack in the winter. This will be more of a summer project. So when the traffic is reduced in the summer. People are going to Chestnut. It's not a good thing.
There's always be traffic from Black. I go up there all the time. And I have over the years.
Number 3, a greater quality and quantity of public and or private open space.
They said that's gonna be open for the plus. And it's gonna be open to the public. It's more opportunity. There's open space out there for people, so I believe that's covered.
Number 4, other recreational amenities.
They also added the winery or the wine.
Trails
and stuff where.
Number 5, needed housing types and or mix.
That would fall.
Housing development appropriate
Rental.
Number 6, innovative designs and or.
And I think the design that they have for those cabins and stuff are, innovative designs. I mean, they're not just gonna be the same little stick building there. So I think it will be.
Number 7, protection and or preservation of natural resources.
Protecting the natural resources. Wow. It's crazy. Of course, no, you're gonna. I'm gonna shoot. Oh, exactly. Oh, so anyway, call the roll. Yes.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we got a vote of 3 to 2. Is that right?
Yep.
Well, the motion, to deny the motion takes a simple majority. To send a positive recommendation takes 4 affirmatives. So it's essentially, it fails for not getting the 4, but it's a no action. All right. You got any other motion, Rick? What's that? Act like adults. What do you have to say? No, they're out there. Yeah. So we got a 3 to 2 vote unless somebody makes another motion.
Can I make a motion to send to the city council that the only thing that is approved is the 10-point-some acres, which include within the Marine Hospital?
No, it's a motion to you either send a positive recommendation on their plan, or you don't. So the vote was 3 yes, 2 no, so it's not to send a positive recommendation. So it's up to the applicant if they want to appeal to the council.
Well, so over there.
Thank you.
Business. Public comment. on GT-005. No one. Mine for adjournment.
Could I ask? I had a guy come to my door the other night, last night in fact, with a paper, who wanted to debate me on the issues of the proposal. And I told him I wouldn't. We are a quasi judicial body. If you wanted to go talk to a judge or a jury and try to get them to see your way, you couldn't do that. And you can't do that with this board either. So I just asked him to leave. I'm disappointed that people are acting the way they are. It's disappointing to our community. And it should not have happened. But it's a mix between legalism and politics. None of us were elected, contrary to what the lady said. We're all appointed, and we should act the way we were appointed to act. And I've seen this happen before, on this board even, where people got talked to by the neighbors, and we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to listen to the evidence and make a determination. And so my wife told me, no, don't get angry tonight. I said, I'm not going to get angry, but I am. I'm a little pissed off. This should not have happened. Now we've got enemies between people in the community. It didn't need to happen. It needed to be a specific decision based on the presentation and the impact. And people got attacked. Members of our board got attacked. You got attacked. Why? Because we're limited in our scope. I appreciated the people that came up here and said on sections 160.1, this happened and this does not apply. But we should say no. That makes sense to me. But to say I don't like this person because he has a conflict of interest, or you shouldn't have accepted the thing, you did your job. And I think the community needs to learn a lesson on this. And we need to continue to do our jobs the way we were appointed. Not elected. Thank you.
Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, carried.
Hey.